Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Bikes for Death podcast. As always, my name is Patrick, and I'm your host. And today's episode is with my new friends, Ezra Ward-Packard and Benjamin Playter and Stephanie Hall. This is kind of a 2-in-1 episode. So let me break it down for you real quick. Essentially, we have Ezra and Ben, who are two buddies crossing America on their bike, going west to east. And Stephanie Hall lives in Austin. She put them on my radar. So we all met up in her apartment to palaver. And then we also brought Stephanie on to talk with Ezra towards the end of the episode to talk about riding bikes and bike touring and bike packing. And we even talk about road racing and crit racing and all kinds of stuff with type 1 diabetes. Ezra was actually on Team Nova Nordisk, which is a pro road cycling team where all of the athletes have type 1 diabetes. So it was a great opportunity to talk diabetes, give some tips to anyone who has type 1 diabetes and wants to get outside on their bikes, get outdoors. Let's not have this be a barrier. So we had both of them share their thoughts and some tips and tricks and their experiences with riding with type 1 diabetes, which was really great. And I hope that a lot of people find value in that segment of the podcast. Going back to the bike tour, one neat thing is that they're currently at the end of their ride. I believe they're in Florida, and their last day will be the day that this episode comes out, which is Wednesday, I believe. I just texted Ezra. I haven't heard back. He's probably busy riding his bike, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to be riding their bikes still when this comes out. So just wanted to give those guys a shout out, wish them happy roads. I've been following along their journey on Instagram, and after we met, Ben started to have some knee pains, but I know that they've pushed through, and I know that they're making good time. Maybe it would be cool to have them come back on and tell, the second half of their trip as maybe a Bikes for Death after party episode or something. So, but one thing that I thought was really kind of cool about their story is each of them, Ben and Ezra, approach cycling very differently. They're two buddies who wanted to cross America on their bikes together, but Ben is taking a, more touring, more leisure approach, and Ezra is currently training for the Tour Divide and looking at this as an opportunity to put in some base miles. And so he's hitting a little bit harder, and them being able to find their balance was an interesting dynamic. And I think that is probably relatable to a lot of us who ride with faster partners. If you're the slow one, if you're the fast one, whatever, that's just one of the challenges with riding. It's difficult to find people who are exactly, your same VO2 max or endurance and I don't know, whatever, same blood alcohol level. So anyway, great conversation. And when I listened to this one back, I found myself laughing quite a bit. I think it was a very enjoyable conversation. Needless to say, it will be plainly obvious that I thoroughly enjoyed meeting all of them. I appreciate their time. And let's get to the episode so you can enjoy it too. But first, let us thank the people that made this episode possible. You know that it's just little old me here in my podcasting studio, aka little room in my house. And this is a community that we're building here, and it does take a village. So we appreciate very much all the help and support that we get. And I say we, but it's me, so that I get here over at Bikes for Death. So without further ado, let's show some appreciation for our newest sustaining patrons. First with Bradley Cordero, Nick Marzano, Gavin Bailey, and Nemo Sandoval. Appreciate y'all signing up. And if you would like to join them, you can find out how over at patreon.com/Bikes for Death. And today's episode is also brought to us with support from Mulberry Gap. Kate Gates, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Patrick.
Last time we had you on, we talked about the Trans North Georgia, which is a great route right outside your front door. But there's also another great route that people can access right out the front door of Mulberry Gap, which is the Hudacat. What can you tell us about this route?
Yeah, it is about a 300-mile route that basically does a figure 8 starting and ending at Mulberry Gap. So it kind of kicks you in the teeth pretty quickly. The first 20 or so miles will take you a lot longer than you think that it should. And it's usually a bit deflating for folks. But after that, it really turns into a really gorgeous and glorious ride through the northern part of Georgia and then the southeastern part of Tennessee for about the first day and a half, maybe even 2 days, depending on your pace. And then it kind of does a big loop around Blue Ridge. So once you get out of the Ocoee Whitewater Center in Tennessee, you'll make your way to Blue Ridge, where you can stay in a hotel if you want. And you can also do some camping in the National Forest around there, and then do a big loop that brings you right back to Blue Ridge. And then you take a mixture of different gravel roads, pavement, and some single track to make it back to Mulberry Gap. So it's about 34,000 feet of climbing in that 300 miles. And it's got some really, really pretty scenery, plenty of climbing, a good mixture of single track, gravel roads, and some pavement as well.
Yeah. And this is another route that's published on bikepacking.com that people can look up. One thing I thought was really interesting, that if somebody did want to ITT this route, what is the entry fee?
It is free, except you have to bring a cat patch. So Hudacat the route itself was named after our resident cat, Hudacat, who is about 8 years old now and has quite the reputation of being your typical cat. But he's just got a really fun personality. And Daniel Jesse, who created the route, was kind of inspired by him and decided to name the route after him. So a lot of folks, the first year, it just became a tradition where you bring a patch, and if you complete the route in its entirety, you get to take a patch home, whether it be the one that you brought or one that another rider brought. And it's basically on a first come, first served basis. So we've had quite a few really entertaining patches show up over the years, and it's been a pretty fun part of the tradition of riding the route.
I'm not going to lie, getting one of those cat patches makes me want to do the route. Yeah. I love it. Now, I mean, I think if I was going to do this, I would probably want to go and rent a cabin at Mulberry Gap, and then ideally leave my car there, ride the route, and then have another cabin whenever I get back to kind of decompress. Do y'all work with bike packers like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A lot of folks do that. They just want to keep their car somewhere safe, especially if they're traveling from out of state or out of town. That's a pretty good distance away. So people will either camp or stay in a cabin and depart pretty early the morning of the ride. And then as they make their way back, they'll also rent a space on that end. And then you can also do meals with us. So breakfast, lunch, or dinner, just reservations are needed in advance, but we've got those available most days of the week. And if you happen to show up on a day where we are not offering those services, at the very least, we do have a retail store with some snacks and, as always, delicious cold beer.
Amen. Where can people go to find out more about Mulberry Gap?
Yeah, mulberrygap.com is our website, and that's the best place to get more information and reach out to us.
Wonderful. Thanks for coming on, Kate. And dear listeners, please check the show notes, and I'll include information on the Hudacat route and how you can contact Mulberry Gap and book your next stay. Okay, and next up, we got Cameron here from Ren Sports. Thanks for coming on today, Cameron.
Thanks for having me, Patrick. Always a pleasure.
Listen, man, but beyond bike products, y'all are embedded and really motivated to help build and grow this segment of bikepacking and adventure sports, or adventure bikepacking. You know, and I heard recently that y'all have a new initiative to specifically help women-owned bike shops. And I was wondering what you could tell me about that.
Yeah, we definitely want to get as many people in the outdoors as possible. And we recognize that outdoor rec has kind of been certainly been skewed over the history of outdoor recreation in the West. We have launched a pilot program up here in Anchorage, where I live, that we'd like to look at expanding in other parts of the world. And what that looks like is we have a couple of women-owned bike shops in Anchorage, including a shop called the Dirt House, which is a suspension-specific shop. And what we've done is we've teamed up with women-owned bike shops and service centers to open a Rin Sports Service Center, where when you buy a Rin Sports product from a women-owned bike shop, we use the women-owned mechanic shop, the suspension shop, to install those products. So basically, we help incentivize you shopping at a female-owned bike shop by offering free installation. So this is a pilot program going on in Anchorage, Alaska, but we'd like to expand it and are looking for partners elsewhere. So if you are a bike shop owner, a female bike shop owner, or you know one in your community and think that they would be a great partner for us, we're looking for partners to help get more diverse population on bikes.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I'll echo that. If there's any female-owned shops that want to hit up Rin Sports, one thing that I've appreciate about you guys, and I've said before, is that you're not just making great products, but you're also trying to be members of this community and find ways to grow it, to support it, and that goes beyond just making great parts. So it's great to have you guys as a partner, and appreciate what you guys are doing in the bikepacking industry.
Any of your listeners can feel free to reach out to me. It's Cameron, that's a common spelling, Cameron, at rinsports.com. So if you've got leads on potential partners as we grow this pilot program, just drop me an email. We'll start a conversation and we'll get you hooked up.
Awesome. Thanks, Cameron.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a great one.
All right, everybody, I am excited about today's episode, so let's not delay. Let's get right to it, and let's have Miles Arbor kick it off with the Bikes for Death theme song.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends, or you could be alone. You ride for a day, or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You let that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes. Or death. Bikes. Or death. Podcast.
Yes, this is how you start a podcast. You crack a beer. So, just to kind of set the stage for our listening audience, and just kind of paint a picture real quick. We got Ezra and Ben who are on some kind of a bike trip. I don't know all the details. And Stephanie here, we're in her apartment in Austin, messaged me because they were looking for a place to stay. They're riding through Bryan College Station, which is my hometown and where I live. And tomorrow's my birthday. I turned 42. I know I look great. Thank you. But what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I was planning to be gone. I was supposed to be bike packing at Big Bend. But last minute, the weather turned to shit. And that freed up my weekend. And now y'all aren't riding bikes because the weather turned to shit. So we all decided to just hang out and, it's like
record a podcast.
Let's just talk about bikes and stuff.
Why not?
So Ezra, what do you want to start? The only thing I know, and like I was saying to you, I really enjoy coming to podcasts almost completely blind. I know your name. I know what it says on your Instagram profile, that you're a semi-professional or retired semi-professional road cyclist.
I prefer washed up.
Washed up. Yeah. Hey,
Yes. Not retired, washed up.
Now that's relatable.
Yeah.
And I know Ben, because he's been in your Instagram stories, is your traveling companion. So we're down. Oh, and it's also worth noting that we're down to one microphone. So I'm used to having more mics and facilitating the conversation a little bit better. But since we don't, we're going to probably just I'll talk to you and then we'll pass it off a little bit.
Sounds good.
Cool. So I guess let's start with the washed up road cyclist part.
Yeah. So from 2000, what would that be? 2013 to 2015, I raced for Team Nova Nordisk development. I'm a type 1 diabetic. If you don't know, Team Nova Nordisk is an all diabetic cycling team.
Oh, right.
Their mission is to inspire, educate, and empower those with type 1 diabetes. Patrick is spilling beer on himself right now.
That is not true. Ben, edit that shit out right now.
Yeah, so I raced for them for 3 years.
I am familiar with the team. That's pretty sick.
Very cool team. Again, I was on the development team, so they are a pro continental team, which is kind of that second tier in the professional road scene. So there's
the whole team is in that second tier.
Nope. So there's when I was on the team, there were a few different tiers, right? So there's the professional team, which is like one tier below the teams that are in the Tour de France. And then I was on the development team, which is like the feeder team to that team. I like to say it's kind of like minor league baseball, right? I was a AAA minor league cyclist for the pro team. So in my mind, I was never a professional cyclist. That's why I say semi-professional cyclist. Like I got paid some money, not a whole lot, but I raced for 3 years, crits, road races, went to Europe a few times and raced. And then at the end of my time with Novo, that's when
You're good.
Yeah. I don't know how long you want me to just keep on rambling.
Yeah, let's just talk. If you say dumb shit, we just cut it out anyway. So. You can say anything you want.
Keep it all in. Keep it all in.
No, we don't cut very much. I don't know. Sometimes like conversations will go on like crazy tangents and add absolutely anyway, but no, we don't really cut much out.
Yeah, so at the end of those 3 years, kind of just super burnt out on the road racing scene.
How old were you when you got into it?
So I joined the team right out of high school. So I actually graduated high school semester early, joined the team in January, went to my first training camp. It was literally like took my final physics exam and got on a plane and flew to Italy for my first training camp. So it was like straight into it, raced on that. Raced for Novo until I was 20, 21. And then the next year I started college in Northfield, Minnesota, where I eventually got a bike shop job at Downtown Bicycles. And that's where I met Ben, who is my boss. So how do you like that transition?
Hey, that is a great transition. Yeah. And then we'll get into because next I want to hear about how you got it from road cycling into bike packing. But that was such a good segue. Enter Ben into the conversation. So Ben, you were you were the boss.
Yeah, that's a loose term. We're a shop of like 5 employees during the summertime. So I am the service manager, and Ezra was my lead mechanic.
Where was this at?
This is in Northfield, Minnesota.
Okay.
Just like 40 minutes south of the Twin Cities.
Okay.
Yep.
So what do you do?
A little bit of everything. Mostly I'm working on the bicycles, but being such a small shop, if we're busy, it's a Saturday, I'm expected to be out on the sales floor, all that kind of stuff.
So you're still doing the bike shop?
Yeah, it's my full-time gig.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, rad. So when did y'all first meet, I guess? It's been a while. I don't know how old you are, so I can't put college into, you said 21.
2017.
Yep. Okay. So when did you guys get into like adventure, cycling, bike packing, bike touring? Have you been into it for a while?
So I was a very casual cyclist, like through college and stuff. I did a little stint in Florida where I didn't have a car. I just rode my bike everywhere. So that was like the real dive into cycling for me, but it was definitely less recreational at that point, more just transportation, honestly. Then I bounced around a little bit. There's a ride in Iowa called Ragbrai. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah, the podcast interviewed me, the people that put it on.
Sick.
I can't remember the name of the podcast, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'd done Ragbrai once with my mom, actually, the year after I graduated high school.
And it's basically a party on a bike. I'm
Absolutely.
not too familiar with it. And it goes state line to state line, party on a bike kind of deal.
Yep, river to river, full on party. A lot less about the biking, more about the partying.
Define the partying. So it's such an important part. Like,
Yeah.
What are we talking?
So, I mean, when you finally wake up for a day of Ragbrai, it's always late. You sleep in because you're hungover, and then you jump on the bike, and you probably don't make it out of the town you slept in before you stop at a bar. And typically you have like a Bloody Mary or something because it's still morning time, so you got to have breakfast. And then you ride to the next town, which is usually 10 to 15 miles away. And then you continue to drink. And if the next town is further than that, we usually bring beer with us for a roadside stop because the guys you ride with, they don't want to go that far. So the group, we sometimes pull a trailer. So one of us young pups, okay. There's so much to the story. The team I ride with is called the Old Dogs. It's a bunch of old men, essentially, riding bikes. We go very slow, and we drink a lot of beer. So there's the young pups, which is essentially my brother and I. And there's been a few that have trickled in as well, but they make us pull the trailer full of beer on those longer stints so that we can just have...
past 15 miles is long.
That's right. So that we can stop and have a roadside beverage until we get to the next town. And then they have call times in each town because Ragbrai shuts down entire highways. No cars allowed. So it's all operated by the police there and everything. But then they want to keep people moving along. So they'll shut down the town at a certain time, which everybody knows, and then you have to get on your bike and you have to move along. So they kind of kick you out to keep things going so they can continue to open up roads again behind us.
Do they have like a drunk tank back there and they start throwing people in after a period of time?
So if you're if you're a registered rider, there is a sag wagon. Yeah. And but it's all very supported. It's not bike packing by any means. Yeah. So we always had a driver who was driving an RV, and if the day was getting late enough, long enough, we'd call in what we call an airstrike, and all that meant was the RV was going to meet us en route. We were going to load up all our bikes.
I love that.
And get to the end town. Because
it sounds way cooler than it actually is. It's bailing out, and you're like, boys, calling the airstrike.
We need the airstrike.
And all you're doing is calling mommy to come pick you up.
Exactly. Because it's not about the biking at all.
Yeah.
No, that's just a means to get to the next party.
I love it. How far is it Ragbrai?
Ragbrai. Yep. It usually ends up being about 500 miles for the week.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So how many beers per mile?
Several. No.
You had me until you said 500 miles. Now it's sounding kind of torturous.
No. But you get a whole week to do it.
Okay.
So and
you can call it an airstrike
at any time.
So really, I'm back. You got me back.
If you wake up in the morning and it's raining, odds are the team's not rolling out. We're just going to stay on the RV and ride and get a ride to the next town.
Yeah.
Only crazy people ride in the rain.
So that was your introduction to what?
So essentially, the way the story goes, I was actually in Waco, Texas, hanging out with my sister, and my brother called me up and said, "Hey, I got some buddies. They invited us to join the Ragbrai team, the Old Dogs. Come on up." And so I knew I had to get back to Minnesota. I couldn't stay in Waco forever. So I just drove from Waco to Iowa with my bike on the back, jumped on my bike, which my bike at the time was the bike I was riding in Florida. It's a Fuji Feather, which is a fixed gear. So I did Ragbrai fixed, which is just stupid, but it's all I had. Ride what you brung. And then after Ragbrai, I continued up to Minnesota where my folks were living, so I could live in their basement like every young man does after college.
At least nowadays, yeah.
That's right. So I was riding the high of bicycles, and I was looking for a job because I needed to make a little bit of money. And so the local bike shop in Northfield was hiring a mechanic. And so I just went in and asked for a job, and that's how it happened.
Nice. And it's been, now you're in like a pandemic with bike shortages and all that fun stuff. How were you able to leave? How long is y'all's total trip?
So we're trying to do it in 30 days.
Okay.
We actually planned this trip last January was the plan. But with COVID raging at that time, we said, yeah, that's not going to work. And so that's what pushed it back to this year. I don't know if you know about the bicycle industry, but it slows down in the wintertime, especially if you're in Minnesota.
Really? Like fat biking and stuff? There's not a market?
There's some fat bikers, but I mean, there was no need for me to be there.
It's just the best time for you to plan a trip like this.
Exactly.
Basically.
This is when I can get away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just hard to get away from. I'm always curious, like how people
get away from work.
Yeah. Get away from work. It's most of them are teachers or work in their van. Yeah. Or something along those lines.
This was something I really wanted to do. And Tom, the boss, the real boss, he's been super cool and very flexible about all this. And I'm sure he's lonely working this month all by himself. But
he's like drunk texting you at night. He's like, so when are you coming
he's
back
holding
again?
the fort down.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I want to hear how you got into this crazy stuff. So after so you're washed up. You are no longer doing the pro, semi-pro stuff.
Yeah. So I moved back home. That season ended in about September, and I moved back home. I thought I was going to continue racing on the road, just kind of independently. Went and did like 1 or 2 local races in Wisconsin, and it's just like, honestly, it just wasn't fun anymore. I just needed a break from the road racing. Like road racing especially is just a grind. It's so competitive these days that it really is like all consuming. Your whole life is just road racing and managing your weight and your training, and it was just too much. So that summer, I signed up for a half marathon, started running a little bit, reapplied to schools. I had applied my senior year before the Novo contract kind of came into the picture. So reapplied to schools. That was like the previous fall, but I got into Carleton College in Northfield, Minnesota. So I knew I was going there. And then in the fall, I moved to Carleton kind of with plans to, just like continue riding my bike. Like I was still going to local group rides in Wisconsin and just riding and like trying to have fun. And one of the unexpected things about Northfield, Minnesota was that there's really no good roads to ride on. It's all gravel. Where in Wisconsin, because of the dairy industry, all the rural farm roads are paved over. So we have like, where I am in southeastern Wisconsin, there's no gravel roads. Total opposite in Minnesota, where there are thousands upon thousands of miles of just really awesome, fun gravel roads. So if you're riding, it's got to be on gravel. Started riding on gravel. At first I was riding my CAD 10 road bike with 28C tires and getting flats constantly.
My first bike packing trip was on a carbon Cannondale Damani with 28C tubeless, loaded to the max, going over gravel. Totally fine.
Love it.
Just a little more adventurous.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick those lines between rocks, but it's fine.
Yep. So I started riding gravel more, just because that's what was available. And then just passing through my like student center in college, I saw a poster for a company that was hiring trip leaders, like summer trips. It's called Apogee Adventures. They lead bike touring trips, hiking trips, service learning trips for teenagers over the summer. And I was like, that seems like a great job to have over the summer.
Is this the one in Arizona?
Nope. So it's based out of Brunswick, Maine. There's 2 kind of popular companies. Apogee's one, and then Overland is the other one.
And my buddy applied for one in Arizona, and I know you said you're in Arizona now. So
yeah, so it's just for kids and teenagers.
Okay, gotcha.
So that first summer, I led 2 bike touring trips, racks, panniers from Freeport, Maine to Quebec City with kids that were ages, it was 12 to 16. And then the next summer, I led a cross-country trip from Charleston, South Carolina to San Diego with a little bit older of kids. And then I did that same trip the next year. And so that was kind of my introduction to a longer form of riding, right? Like I had never really bike toured or bike packed before, started doing these trips and absolutely fell in love with it. Like I loved it. It was great just to spend, the trips that I was leading were 42 days long and you're just living off the bikes. We didn't really camp.
42 days.
42 days. Yep.
Would y'all have support vehicles and stuff on? Usually there's some kind of.
Yep. So the first year there were 2 groups. So it's me or 2 co-leaders, a group of kids, usually 9 to 12 kids. That first year there were 2 of those groups and we were like a day apart and there was 1 support vehicle that bounced back and forth between the 2 groups. And then the second year, it's all dependent on how many kids sign up. The second year was just 1 group. And so we had a designated support vehicle.
Yeah, I got you. So tell me about this trip that y'all are on now. What is it? Are y'all doing the Southern Tier? Kind of.
So I know that the Southern Tier exists. I don't actually know how much of our route has been on the official Southern Tier route. Some of it has. Our first night, we rode from San Diego to Ocotillo, California, and pulled into an RV park. Honestly, planning to just sleep in one of the RV slots, knocked on the host's door, and they were like, "Oh yeah, take the rec room." And so we walk over to the rec room and there's like a Southern Tier sticker on the door. And I was like, "Oh, I guess we're on the Southern Tier." So the trip is...
Here's your sticker.
What?
Instead of here's your sign, here's your sticker.
Yeah, exactly, right? So the trip is, we're going San Diego to Daytona Beach, Florida. Why Daytona Beach? Because it's close to airports. And we're like, yeah, let's finish in Daytona Beach. It's a little bit more exciting to finish there than it is to finish in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And then in terms of the route, I'm using Strava heat maps. I kind of just pull out my phone and start drawing a line. It's like, if it's super bright, I'm like, there's a bunch of people who ride there, so it must be a good road. There's another app called iOverlander.
Yeah.
It's for like backcountry camping spots.
Yeah, I use that all the time.
Yep. I live in a van, so I use that just to find spots when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
And I've used that to kind of just map out our route. So I pull that up and I'm like, okay, we're at about 100 miles a day. Where are we going to sleep tonight? And I planned this out a little bit before we hit the road, but at the same time, it's changed a lot like throughout the course of the trip.
So whose plan was this? Is this your idea?
I think it was mutual. Like Ben wanted to do it and I was like totally down to do it. And honestly, that's kind of like how Ben got into this more like longer, intense stuff than Ragbrai was like because of me. Like when I was working at the bike shop, I was always looking for the local gravel events to go to. And I was like, Ben, let's go do this ride that's, 76 miles long. A really popular gravel route or race that no longer exists. One of the original gravel races is the Almanzo.
Yeah.
So that was one that, did we do that together? I don't think we actually did that one together. I did that by myself, but there's a whole bunch of like, honestly, small grassroots gravel events that no one has ever heard of in Minnesota that are great. So we would just like go to those sorts of things. And I think that's how Ben got a little bit more intense. He went from his fixie bike to actually having like a gravel bike and, tubeless setup and carbon and got a little bit more into it. So
where are y'all's bikes? Whose is whose?
So I'm on the Bomb Track Hook EXTC and then Ben is on a Trek 520.
Oh, nice.
And honestly, we're on the same trip. We're kind of doing different things on this trip. It's very different setups. It's very, I'm still in that like racer mindset. I'm planning on doing the Divide this summer. And so I'm like, these are base miles for the Divide and kind of have a Divide setup, 40-pound bike. And Ben's Ben's cruising. Ben's got panniers. Ben's got 2 suitcases strapped to his rack. He's having a good old time. We make it work. But if you look at our bikes next to each other, it's like, what is going on here? How does this work?
Kind of race training, and Ben's just like hanging on.
It is a great combination of training camp and bike tour. We're having a lot of fun, but we're also 30 days across the country. It's pretty fast. Like when we've ran into 2 other groups that are bike touring. Well, one lady who was going from New Orleans to San Diego, and this was like the second part of her trip. A few years ago, she did Florida to New Orleans, and she's taken 3-4 months to get out to San Diego. And then we also ran into a family, husband, wife, probably 11-year-old daughter, and then a kid who the dad was pulling in a stroller, and they had been on the road for 7 months.
That's awesome.
And especially the lady, she saw my setup and was like, what are you doing? Because I have a 40-pound bike and, no rack, bike packing setup. I have aero bars, a power meter. It's like, this is not your traditional bike touring setup.
I don't know.
She had 100 pounds of stuff. I love it. I think it's great. I love a nice, fast, snappy bike.
Yeah,
it's
if you're
awesome.
going to go fast, that looks like it'll get it done. I mean, it just depends on how fast you're going and how much time you want to spend out there and how much stuff you want to carry. But if you're going fast between towns, you can always just resupply as you go.
Exactly. And, Ben's keeping up. It's not like I'm dropping Ben. Every once in a while, I'll go up the road for 30-minute tempo session, but we're finishing at the same time. We ride together most of the day. So,
all right, Ben, hop back on. Let's hear your side of that.
Sure.
I don't know either of y'all. I've only seen you sent me a message a few days, 5 days ago. Stephanie did, and I started following your stories, and you're like, we're having a great time. Everything's wonderful. And then he pans to Ben, and Ben's like, are we? This is new information. No, but I don't know. I was like, maybe you're just like fucking around, and like being silly in the video, or what the dynamic is there. But yeah,
no, there's definitely some truth to that. I would consider myself a casual cyclist. Ezra's training to win races, and I am riding my bike.
Yeah.
So it has been a struggle at times to keep his pace. He definitely pushes me more than I would be doing if I was out here alone. But I think he also stops and smells the flowers a bit more because he sees how much fun I'm having just touring across the country and not taking myself too seriously.
Yeah. So where does this fall in terms of your own personal efforts on a bike? I mean, riding across country is obviously a pretty big.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I mean, like Ezra kind of mentioned, I've done some gravel events. It's the same kind of thing. I'm in Northfield. All the local scene is on gravel, so that's pretty much all I ride. And I've done some bigger events. Ezra and I did the Dam. I don't know if you're familiar with that one.
I feel like I've heard of that
one. The day
across
across Minnesota.
Yeah.
So you get 24 hours to ride 240 gravel miles across the state. And that was my biggest cycling accomplishment, crushing that and actually finishing before dark was incredible. Ezra was fighting for a podium spot and I finished, one of those kind of things. But
and anytime you want to ride, you hit me up.
Yeah.
Ezra, don't call me. No, you can call me still. But I definitely am with you. I mean, even when I try to race or go fast or whatever, it's still like at a lollygagging pace. It's I'm just not fast, and I don't get the joy out of it to do it. Maybe if I didn't have 2 kids and 2 jobs, maybe
you could dedicate a little more.
Maybe I would be
time
like
and
super
effort.
fast. Maybe I'd be an ultra athlete.
Who knows?
The sky's the limit.
Yeah. But I mean, Ezra lived in Northfield for a while. He actually lived in my basement for a bit. So we have spent plenty of time riding our bikes together. So I knew what I was signing up for. So I've been training in the basement on my trainer all winter long, and it was for the fear of keeping up with Ezra. So I mean, my fitness obviously isn't the same as his, but it's good enough, and I'm keeping up, and I don't know, I'm happy so far.
Yeah. So what is your, y'all are doing about $100 a day, doing about $100 a day, and that'll be $3,000 by the time you're done.
Yeah, I think our total
30,
route is just shy of 3, but then there's some rest days built in and stuff. So yeah, we're averaging about 100 a day.
Where are y'all camping or staying most nights?
Yeah, so we've been doing a fair mix of motels. Ezra finds the seediest, cheapest motels out there, and then some camping, obviously. Most of our camping ends up being at like RV parks. A lot of them have actually had little spots for tent campers and things, but it usually boils down to we look at the RV spot and they tell us that it's going to be $30 for this tiny piece of grass. And we know there's a motel down the street that we could probably get for 50.
Yeah.
And so most nights we stay in a motel, it's one of those. It's like, all right, let's spend an extra $20 and just sleep in a bed.
I did a podcast that just came out on Wednesday. It was with Miles. We did this trip in Arizona, and I had mechanicals and deflated mattress and some stuff that popped up. And so he kept going on the route. I got off the route, rented a seedy motel across from a prison. That should have been my first sign. The wallpaper was coming off the wall. I tried to turn on like the vent fan in the bathroom, and I shit you not, it started to smoke and catch on fire. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I can sympathize.
This is a great
I'm back
place.
on with you, Ezra. I'm back on, man. Seedy motels all the way. Yeah, man, it's hard to, especially when you're all nasty on a bike tour anyway.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't need much.
Right.
And if you're anything like me, you're poor. So you're
Exactly. Accurate.
I mean, he lives in a van and used to live under your house. So he went from under your house
to in a van. Big improvement.
You're going places. Oh man, I'm in a mood today. Whenever I've noticed that whenever I'm in a good mood, I get more snarky and more.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know why I do. I get more. You do too.
That's all right.
You're more snarky or like more sarcastic and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Good. Relatable. All right. So why did y'all stop? I think it's worth mentioning why you're here in Austin.
Yeah. So I mean, the short story is we plan to stop.
This is
in
a
Austin.
long podcast.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to the long story.
Okay. Tell whichever story you want.
We plan to stop in Austin. We've got a few rest days sprinkled in, so we were just gonna explore the city. I've never been to Austin. Heard really good things about it. Was very excited. But I mean, it started maybe a week ago that everybody in Texas was talking like, hope you're riding south. Hope you're ready to hunker down and all this stuff about this big winter storm that was coming. And, you know, Ezra and I are from the Midwest. We've seen winter. We weren't too terrified. We even had nights where we're camping and people have come up and been like, you guys gonna be okay? It's gonna get below 30 tonight. I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. That's
below
awesome.
30.
Sure. it might hit 30 tonight.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're like, yeah, it's totally fine. We're prepared for this. No big deal. So the day coming into Austin to meet Stephanie, it was starting to rain. It was the first real rain we'd gone through. There's been some days where it's like sprinkled and drizzled and stuff, but not really affected us too much. But it was like really raining. And then we got here and then it got really cold and it continued to precipitate and everything went to ice. That's the moral of that story, I guess.
Why didn't y'all leave today?
So we had a plan.
I'm curious because I just drove here, so I have some thoughts on it too.
We had a plan to stop for a day.
We just really wanted to be on your podcast, Patrick. That's the real reason. This was all just a ploy to get on the Bikes Your Death podcast.
I would have met y'all on the
That's
road.
Stephanie also doesn't work tomorrow, so she gets to ride like 50 miles with us tomorrow. Also,
okay.
looking at the weather app, it was like a real feel of like 8 degrees. Once again, we're a little crazy. We're not stupid.
Yeah.
So could we have ridden today? Maybe, but all in all, it worked out.
This is much nicer. Yeah, y'all made it. Yeah. Well, I just drove here from College Station. It's like 2 hours, which is where y'all are heading, I guess, tomorrow now. And it was windy as heck. Like I was getting blown. You ever had to be at 10 and 2 and be on it, because there were several times the wind would just push me. And I drive a refrigerator on wheels, so it's not like aerodynamic. If you drive a van, you know.
Oh, we know. And that was us going into Del Rio 3-4 days ago. It was 8 hours into a headwind out of the south. And it was just, we stopped at a Walmart to get snacks. And me and Ben were both just zonked walking around this Walmart, like chugging smoothies, being like, what did we just do? Because it was really like me on the front pulling for 8 straight hours and Ben hanging onto my wheel for dear life. And we're like,
Ben, sucking that wheel. I'd be behind Ben.
I mean, at one point we were crossing this super big bridge over the reservoir and Ben just pulled around me. I was like, oh, sweet. I guess Ben's feeling good. I just let him dangle out there for a little bit and just
let him
feel it for a while.
Yeah,
like
this
is what I've been experiencing for the last 8 hours.
That way he can appreciate it more. What kind of van do you have?
I have a Ram ProMaster 2019.
Same as Ultra Romance.
Same as Ultra Romance.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying to grow out the hair and the beard. I'll get there one day.
I'm beating you. I'm going to get to Ultra Romance status faster.
Yeah, so...
that's not aerodynamic, though. If you're trying to race, I don't know.
I think living out of a van and racing bikepacking races, I think that's the only way to do it. Like that's... honestly, that's kind of how I am able to do this trip, how I'm able to do the divide. It's just... keep those living expenses super, super low, not a whole lot of responsibility, and you can take time off and ride your bike a bunch.
What are you doing for work now?
So I am a bike mechanic at REI, which works out really well. REI, obviously a larger business corporation co-op than Downtown Bicycles. So when I leave, it's a lot less of a big deal, right? If I were to ask Tom to take 4 months off in June, he would laugh at me and be like, no way. When I ask REI, they're like, yeah, you're kind of replaceable. Like, go race your bike. So it works out. You're
cute. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I agree with that. I made some major life choices in terms of like gravitating towards simplicity and prioritizing living life and being able to do the things you enjoy rather than buying things that just sit there or whatever, So how long have you been living in the van?
So I graduated college right as the pandemic.
It sounds so funny. You're like, I graduated college and now I live in a van.
Now I live in the van. Honestly, it was destiny. Living in a van down by the river. Like I was joking about living in a van in college. Like everyone knew it was going to happen. And then pandemic happened. I was again planning on graduating college a little bit early and was going to work full time at Downtown Bicycles. I just had enough credits to get out of there, save some money. The pandemic hit. After a month or two of being kind of lonely in Minnesota, I was like, and also thinking that the world was ending, early stages of the pandemic, I was like, I'm going to move home. I moved home. Wasn't exactly sure what I was doing with my life post-college. I knew I wanted bike racing to be a big part of that. And I was like, I've been thinking about buying a van and living in a van for years. And I jumped on it like right before it really took off. During the pandemic, everyone bought a van. Everyone started building out a van. Now it's pretty much impossible to buy a van. So I bought an old secondhand. It used to transport Segways and, the things that mall cops roll around on. And I got it for a great deal because the company that was transporting these Segways didn't actually tie the Segways down. And so there's a bunch of like little dings on the outside of the van. And so aesthetically, it's beat to hell. Mechanically, it runs great. So I jumped on it, took it home, worked on it out of my dad's garage for about 6 months. I bought it in July. I was working for my parents. They own a landscaping business. So working for them during the day and then working on the van at night, riding when I can, and then hit the road December 1st and headed west. Wasn't actually sure where I was going, kind of just looking for a bike shop job. Was originally heading towards Tucson because Tucson in winter, it's kind of the cycling mecca of the United States. All the pros are down there, and I thought I could find a bike shop job there. Got to Flagstaff. REI had posted a job for a tech the day before I got to Flagstaff, and haven't left Flagstaff since. Well, that's where home base is now. I mean, I've definitely left, but that's where home base is. So
yeah, no, that's sick. On your Instagram, it says that you're a wannabe professional bike pack racer or something along those lines. Is that accurate?
I mean, if somebody wants to give me a little money to race my bike, I'm not going to say no to that. I've done the full-on professional thing, and I don't think I would ever want to do that again.
Yeah.
But, I have like big plans for bike pack racing. My first race was the Arkansas High Country race at the end of, that would be 2020. Yep, that was the year that Ted King set the fastest known time, and Andrew did his crazy ride.
Yeah.
I had terrible luck, destroyed a tire, ended up hitchhiking off the course on the second day. But after that experience, I was hooked. One of the reasons why I headed west is because I wanted to be able to ride year round. This past year, I did the Pinions and Pines bikepacking race, which is the local Flagstaff bikepacking race, about 300 miles. Came in, was leading that up until the last day, ended up second behind, why can I not think of his name right now? Mr. Colorado Yo-Yo.
Oh, Hefe Branham?
No, not Hefe. I'm drawing a blank right now.
Stimpy, Andrew Stremke?
Yes, Stremke. Yep.
Yeah.
And then
Kate and Andrew Stremke.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And then Kate was third. So Andrew caught me on the first single track section.
And they're both single speed too.
Yeah. It was kind of ridiculous. I was on my gravel bike. Everyone else was on mountain bikes, but it really was the first 5 people were on single speed bikes or gravel bikes.
Yeah. We see it in longer races where single speed, Bailey Newbury's a good example.
Oh, yeah, for
Hefe
sure.
Branham won Colorado Trail last year on a single speed. So, definitely there's something to endurance riding and single speeds if you're into that kind of thing. I've never been crazy enough to find out, but
I like gears.
They work unless they snap off and then they don't work. Okay. So what other ones have you done?
So then after that one, and this is actually how I met Stephanie, 2 weeks later, I went up to Kansas and did Unbound. I'd gotten into the 200 through the lottery the year before, but because of COVID, it was canceled. So a gravel race, right? Wanted to do Unbound. Again, terrible luck, completely destroyed a tire, crashed really well. I got a flat, was chasing back onto the kind of lead group, crashed really hard, got another flat tire, and eventually about 100 miles in, just dropped out of the race, got a ride and was trying to get back to the second checkpoint. Made my way to a highway where I was waiting for my support person to eventually pick me up. And then Stephanie came by, who was volunteering for the race, gave me a ride to the second checkpoint.
Why'd you say... Were you really volunteering?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The way you said it, I didn't know if she was like a rogue volunteer.
Well, picking up people was not part of the volunteer.
Oh, okay.
She saved me. She saved me big time. So
that's how you met him?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
And then I think we both looked at each other's Instagram and realized that we were both type 1 diabetics and raced bikes, and we're like, cool.
Yeah.
And so when I was rolling through Austin, I was like, yeah, I'll reach out to Stephanie and see if I can crash at her apartment. And she was like, yeah, for sure. So yeah.
Awesome. And then now you're training for Tour Divide this year or next year?
So I'm going to do it this year. The other race, bikepacking race that I did was North to South Colorado. And that was in September. First year event, 530 miles from Fort Collins, Colorado to Alamosa.
What's the name of that event?
North to South Colorado.
Oh, it's called North to South Colorado. Okay.
Official title is North to South Colorado Bikepacking Race.
Okay.
And I won that one.
Sorry, I got so distracted by the name. I forgot. I'm like directions. And anyway, go ahead. So you won.
I won that one. Yeah.
Finally. God,
I know, right?
I was wondering.
Third time's the charm.
No, man, that's it's cool. What is it about bike pack racing and bike packing in this that you're enjoying more than, you said you're burnout on the road stuff?
Yeah. So, well, why I kind of lean towards the racing aspect is I still love racing. Like, I love riding my bike at any speed, but riding my bike fast is still the thing that like brings me the most joy. One of the things I really like about bike pack racing is it's not just about the pedaling. It's also about all the other things, the logistics, the planning, the gear. In my mind, it's more comprehensive. It's a total effort. There's just like so much that goes into it to be successful, where like in road racing, the strongest person definitely doesn't win, but at the same time, you have to be at this level to win. I raced for 3 years. I did, over 200 road races and crits, and I won one race, one P12 race, US cycling category race. And it just was, I don't know. I just enjoy it. It's just like fun to be out there. It's fun to like.
It's more solo, really. I mean, that's what I don't know a lot about road racing, but I have watched the Tour de France a couple times, and it's surprising how much of a team effort it is. I mean, everybody's playing their roles, and you got to carry your whatever your job is, and bike packing, man, you're out there. I mean, it is the exact opposite. If anybody hands you a tire, then that's it. So it's the exact opposite. So I think a lot of people like bike packing and ultra endurance racing for that reason. It's a huge puzzle, and figuring out a way to get your body, your mind, your bike, your gear, everything across a really long distance in a fast time. It's a big puzzle, and to be able to put all those things together and actually like come away with a W is, I have to imagine, rewarding. I would never experience it, but
for sure.
I talk to people who do, and they like it.
Yeah. And then also just like the experience of the actual race, right? In road racing, it is so intense that you can be in these incredibly beautiful places. You don't really get to enjoy them, right? You're just so stressed out about where you are in the pack and moving up in the pack and not crashing and making sure that, if you're the designated rider, that you are saving as much energy as you possibly can to try to win at the end. Or if you are a domestique, you're helping the designated rider. And, the 3 years, like I had a great time, like racing on the road for 3 years. But at the same time, there are so many places that I went there, but I never really saw them. So something like North to South Colorado, you're racing and you're like focused on racing, but you're also only going, 15 miles per hour. You actually have time to enjoy the scenery a little bit more, and you're not just like staring at your power meter for 6 hours and then going straight back to the hotel and eating lukewarm pasta and getting a massage and then doing it the next day. So it's a more like comprehensive experience, I guess. That's one of the reasons why I love, trips like this, right? I feel like riding across the country is an absolutely fantastic way to see the entire country. I think it's an experience that not enough people have, to just like ride through different landscapes and like slowly see culture change. In my mind, this trip, we're riding coast to coast, and we start in the West and we ride through the Western United States, and it slowly transitions to Texas, which is kind of its own country in a way. It's like own unique identity. And then once we roll out of Texas, we're going to roll into the South, and they are going to have a different culture. And it's super fun to just experience all those changes. And, the riding is great, but it's also super fun to stop at little hole in the wall cafes. Yeah. Talk to the locals, all those sorts of little experiences, which you honestly don't get when you drive coast to coast, right? You're like insulated in your car. When you're out on the road going 15 miles per hour, you actually have time to like soak everything in.
Yeah. You can observe everything much better. I always feel like, I mean, no matter what terrain you're in, but if you want to know, I never knew my own city. I'm living in the same city where I was born, but I never knew it as well until I started riding my bike around. And I don't know, you see like just the way the city's connected, the way people are, you get to interact with people more. There's more involvement. You're more involved in everything, and you're going at a different speed to be a better observer of it. If you're driving a car, then you're going the same speed as everybody else who's driving a car. If you're driving a bike, then like you're seeing all those cars. You're that like difference of speed allows you to observe the world in kind of like a different way. And yeah, I think it's important perspective to have. I've never ridden across the country, but I think it would be really, really neat. I mean, I've ridden like across. I mean, even if you ride across a state, you're gonna see the different pockets of a wealthy neighborhood and poverty, and like you actually see way more than if you just like drive your car past it. It's pretty wild.
And I think it's like interacting with those communities, right? It doesn't matter if you're riding across the country or just riding across town, especially when you have a bunch of bags strapped onto your bike. Every single person we interact with asks us, where are you going? And that's like a great conversation starter. It's literally every single gas station that me and Ben pull up to and lean our bikes against the wall. At least one person is going to see what we're doing. And once we tell them that we're riding across the country, they're immediately engaged and immediately want to talk to us. And, just 2 days ago, we had like a 15-minute long conversation out front of a Dollar General with some lady who was getting her groceries, and she just thought it was the coolest thing ever that we were riding our bikes all the way across the country. And then she told us to hurry up and get to Austin because it was about to snow.
Yeah, it's crazy. I don't think enough people know how that this is even out there, I mean, because if you go bikepacking or bike touring, you're right. Everybody wants to stop and talk to you about it. They don't even realize that this is a thing that people do. It's crazy to me. It's part of the reason why I started a podcast. I want to like tell people that you can do it and you don't have to be an Uber athlete, even though apparently, what?
Give people crazy ideas.
I'm trying to give them all the credit, but it's not crazy. I think, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, but I mean, the reality is like the world we're living in is crazy. Like you work I saw a meme this morning. It was someone posted, it was like, you work 9 to 5. Like we've been convinced that you work 9 to 5, come home, watch Netflix, live in a house you can't afford, and it's like normal, like this way it's supposed to work. And I think it's good to have as many examples as possible of living a more intentional life, seeking the things that bring you happiness and living a more intentional life. And yeah, you don't need much if you're filling your life with things that make you happy and bring you satisfaction, make you feel good about yourself, whatever it is, then yeah, a lot of that stuff can be just like a distraction.
Couldn't agree more.
You're the sane one, buddy. Y'all, us, all of us, we're sane. It's the other. What is the path? The question I want to ask you is, what is the path? I can't tell if you're being serious about becoming a professional bike pack racer or not, but one of the things I'm interested in talking to people about is, what does that look like right now? I mean, it's such a young sport, and I mean, there are some sponsored riders, but is there a path there? It's not like road cycling where you have UCI and like level 1, level 3, level, I mean, it's a completely different thing.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like I could talk about this for a whole other podcast. You see this in gravel right now, with this like privateer movement, which is, these individuals who are providing value for these companies that are willing to support them. It's like going away from this like very structured team model or factory racing model and having a small group of brands that you can actually, give value to those brands and represent in a super positive way. I think great examples of that in this area are like Colin Strickland and Payson McAlvin. An example of like sponsors that I think they provide a lot of great value to is like the Meteor Cafe. I posted that I was going to the Meteor Cafe today on my Instagram, and a bunch of my campers who, I don't realize that they really pay that much attention to cycling, are like, oh, say hi to Colin for me. And I'm like, it's like well known because it's a really cool spot in Austin and in Bentonville, but also because they do a fantastic job like representing that company, and that company supports them. So what does it look like? I think it's complicated. And I know there's people out there who don't like how professional gravel racing is. And I also see that kind of trickling into bike packing. There's like the Lael controversy with her filming her Tour Divide route, and, the money that she was getting from that, is that it's an unsupported race. Let's not get into that whole concept. But, honestly, I think there are a few bike pack racers who you at this point would call professional bike pack racers, because
there's just not very, I think you're right. There's a few of them.
There's a handful, right?
Yeah.
Sophian, Lael, Josh.
Yeah. James Mark Hayden. Yeah.
There's a few guys who like make enough. And once again, that's why I say part-time professional.
Okay.
Because I know I'm never
part-time
professional, right? I like working at the bike shop. I like wrenching on bikes. I've worked my entire life. I enjoy it. But at the same time, I'm on a shoestring budget. I'm living out of a van, doing what I can to race. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the whole industry is trying to figure it out. I mean, it still feels very young, especially in like the professional racing side of things. And I mean, as someone who is contacting companies trying to get money from them in this space, it seems like, if it's gravel, if it's like a gravel race or something, it's a no-brainer. Everybody wants to jump on board. Gravel is so hot right now. And part of me is grateful that bike packing doesn't, I don't want to personally, I don't really want to see bike packing evolve the same way gravel cycling has with, a gravel hall of fame, and, it costs $500 to go and race an event. And, some of those things I'm not as keen on. And, but riding your bike, 2,500 miles, it weeds out a lot of people, I feel like. So like, I don't know, if you can do that, you probably like earned a spot to be there.
Yeah. And isn't that like one of the most fascinating things about bike pack racing specifically is almost all the races, there's no entrance fee. They're all organized on Facebook or Instagram. Like most of them don't really have official race websites. And then there's no payouts, right? There's really no podium. There's no award show or anything like that. But at the same time, it's like every year, more and more people are trying races. More and more people are getting involved. You look at the calendar of bike pack racing events on bikepacking.com. Every year it just gets bigger and bigger, and more events popping up all over the place.
Yeah. No, it's growing. And I think that's good, because we're going to see options. We're going to have lots of different types of events, lots of different locations, and that'll appeal to a larger audience. So there'll be a little bit for everybody probably.
And I think gravel and bike packing share a lot of characteristics. And I think one of the coolest characteristics is this kind of like marathon model of an event, right? Where, once again, I know there's been some controversy with like the Lifetime Grand Prix and the fact that there's going to be, 25 men and 25 women who are competing for this large prize purse. And there's a lot of people who are like, how does this benefit, the person who's just riding the event for fun? And honestly, I don't think it affects them that much, right? Because just like in a competitive marathon, there's the people out there who are going to be running 2:05 marathons. They don't really affect your race, right? Like that's the cool thing about gravel racing. That's the cool thing about bike packing. Unlike in road racing, you get dropped in a road race, you have a miserable time. You're not in the pack anymore. It's not a good time. You get dropped in a gravel race, you're going to have a better time. You're going to stop at the aid stations and drink a beer and have whiskey and, eat snacks and hang out with people and make friends. And it's almost like, if you want to have fun, don't race. Like, ride your pace, have a good time. And like, I think that's why gravel has blown up And I think that's the same thing with bike packing, right? I'm going to be at the front of the race and I'm going to not sleep and ride as hard as I possibly can and hallucinate and do all these things to try to win the race because I'm a competitive person. There's other people who are just, I've got a week to tour North to South Colorado. I'm going to take a week to tour the state of Colorado. I'm going to stop at diners. I'm going to have a great time. So I think there's a really good balance in the space for both things to kind of coexist.
Yeah, I mean, I think this thing that scares me, I agree. I talk to people who are fast, and I mean, everyone in between. I don't really care. I think it's just neat that we're all out doing the same thing. And I think that people should be allowed to experience any way they want to. If you want to go fast, no one should be like, bro, you're going too fast. And, on the inverse, if someone wants to go slow, that's fine too. But I think the money part is the part that scares me, is like when you have larger, corporate interest or larger groups coming together. It's the money thing that kind of scares me. And it's not even payouts to, athletes. I think it'd be actually cool if, like, you rode across Tour Divide and got $1,000 check or something for winning it. Like, that wouldn't really hurt my feelings at all. But to have exorbitant race fees and make it really limited and very difficult to get into, that's an unfortunate part. But I mean, it comes with demand, which is kind of part of what you're saying, is that there's so much interest in these events right now that, I mean, they keep growing regardless of the price. So I don't know. It's pretty crazy.
And, with that, once again, I kind of look towards marathons, right? In order to do the Boston Marathon, which is arguably the most popular marathon in the United States, you have to qualify. You have to run a specific time to qualify. Is that a way that gravel goes? Or do we stick with the lottery system? Because right now it's, what are your chances of getting into Unbound? I don't know what percentage of people get selected for Unbound. But I think it's a good problem to have. I think it's a good problem that races are so popular, and that's just going to encourage people to put on more races, right? If you see, I think
that's exactly what it's doing. I think we're going to see it's why you're seeing the event calendar. I've had Miles Arbor come, and he manages the event calendar, and I mean, they're overwhelmed and inundated with new events that are popping up all the time. And we're seeing different, my event that I host is hopefully a little bit different format. And there's a bunch of others. I mean, Ragbrai is a great example. I mean, it's not bike packing, but it's a great example of, you don't always have to just do it one way. It doesn't have to be, just about being super fast. I mean, you get fucked up and drunk and ride hungover the next day if you want to. And I think that's my hope, is that what we've seen with, road cycling specifically is how it's so uniform. Everybody wears the exact same thing. All the bikes are exactly the same. And, it's all so structured, and there doesn't seem to be any of that, extracurricular activities on a bike. It's like, lose weight, go fast, and that's about it, and if you're not, then you're not having fun.
Yeah. And
I don't know. I've never been a roadie, so I'm just kind of.
I still love following road racing.
I don't want to admonish any forms of cycling, because ultimately it's bikes or death. So, but I can have my preferences.
For sure, I love road racing. I view road racing as like the Formula One of cycling. Like, it's all about performance.
Yeah.
No one in Formula One is having a good time. No, high budgets. It's all about speed. It's all about winning. That's the only thing that matters there. Other forms of cycling, there's a better balance between having fun and, the lifestyle that comes with riding your bike. So,
yeah, I appreciate your perspectives. You've definitely thought about it, and you have, you have experience as a road cyclist. You said you ran marathons too?
I just ran one half marathon because I didn't want to ride my bike.
Yeah.
Did that half marathon, immediately started riding my bike again.
I did a half marathon trail run and quit. So I can sympathize. Yeah, that was the last time I ever ran. I had a truck come pick me up, and it's over. All right, Ben, your turn. This guy is just,
he's got a lot to say.
Oh, it's good stuff, man. No, it's good. It's good stuff. I mean, you've had a lot of interesting experiences, and not a lot of people have been a professional or washed up professional semi whatever road cycles before. So I'd like to hear your approach to cycling. I mean, we've heard, a lot about his, but what is it about cycling, or how do you like to approach it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. My approach to cycling is much more recreational. It's about having fun. I ride with friends, it's that kind of thing. It's a very social, just good time. Obviously there's the fitness aspect, the health and all that you gain from cycling, which is awesome. And I hope to cycle my entire life so that I can stay healthy, kind of thing. But I'm not chasing any podiums, anything like that.
Do you have a favorite route, bikepacking route where you live, or?
Honestly, when I go out for a ride from Northfield, I just pull out my weather app, check the wind, decide how long I want to ride, and I just ride into the wind, because there's honestly such good gravel in the Northfield area. It's some of the best in the world. We all call it hero gravel, because honestly, a lot of the roads are more enjoyable to ride on than pavement, because there's no expansion cracks. It's just flat, smooth, hard, perfect. You can really get ripping if you want to.
That's exactly what I said in Oklahoma when I went to Stillwater. I was like, your gravel is way better than your pavement.
Yeah.
Their pavement is shit. It's got potholes in it, and my truck damn near lost a lug nut, I mean,
right.
Anyway.
When I'm headed out of town, the first few miles, I'm just like, man, I can't wait till I hit a gravel road, and then there's no traffic, and it's awesome. So there's tons of routes out there, and sometimes I don't even pick one, because you just go and see where you end up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if I know I've got a couple hours, I'll just ride for a little over an hour and then turn around and let the wind push me back home.
Is it always windy there?
Pretty much.
Man, really?
I mean, there's some calmer days, but it's never dead. There's always some wind.
Huh. Interesting. I didn't know that. I've never been up there.
Yeah, but it's relatively flat. Not a bunch of climbing. I mean, if you head south of town, there's enough. If you're not in the mood for climbing, you just go north instead, and it is pancake flat and no big deal.
Yeah. So let's, should we talk a little bit more about the route you're on?
Sure.
How has it been going so far? We haven't really talked at all about the ride,
about the struggles of this tour.
Yeah, how's it been going overall? I mean, it seems like you're on schedule and everything. You're not stressing too much about time.
We are on schedule, which has been great. I was pretty sure Ezra was trying to kill me the first week. We had some big days with real mountain passes on a packed out bike. I honestly had never done anything like that. Like I said, the hills in my area are short.
Dude, I live here, so.
Yeah, so doing a real mountain pass where I remember the first one we came to, we were just outside of San Diego, and Ezra rides next to me and he goes, "All right, I'll wait for you at the top, see you in an hour." I was like, "In an hour? What are you talking about?" And you look down and we're about to do an 8-mile climb with an average of 6% or whatever. And that's going to take me an hour. This is crazy.
At least.
Yeah. So that was a wake up call, I guess. Just conditions I wasn't used to.
Was that still in California?
California was the first bit. Day 5 is the day that will live in infamy.
Oh, tell me about day 5.
Yeah, day 5. Where were we on day 5? We camped in Kearney, and then we went to Safford. And again, more backstory. The Green Bay Packers playing in the playoffs. Ezra and I are both born and raised in Wisconsin, so we bleed Packer green and gold. So it was very important that we get home. We had a hotel booked because we were going to be there for kickoff. We're going to watch the Packers win. It's all great. And we started the morning pretty early with a mountain pass, and it ate me alive. So we climbed and climbed, and Ezra disappeared, of course. And so we finally descend down, or I finally descend down is more accurate. And then we turn right, and it's just a highway, and we're going to ride on this highway for, I swear it was like 60 or 80 miles. It was a big number on the same highway straight into Safford. And we got punched in the face with a 15-mile-an-hour headwind and pulled into the gas station where we had agreed to rendezvous. And Ezra's like, "What took you so long? I've been waiting here like an hour," that kind of thing. And it's starting to rain, and it wasn't looking good. And I do math. That's my background. So I have all this data in front of me on my computer, and I'm calculating all these numbers. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make it in for kickoff at the pace I'm going.
Oh no.
I'm going to miss the whole entire game.
Holy shit.
I'm going to be out here in the middle of the night, and it wasn't looking good. I was cracking mentally and physically at that point. It just so happened that another coworker at Downtown Bicycles, a college kid at the other college in Northfield, he was down in Patagonia for a break because his classes went virtual for COVID reasons. And he wanted to come and hang out with us. So he had agreed to meet us in Safford. So I called him up and said, "Hey, I'm going to need an airstrike."
I love it. Did he know what an airstrike was?
No, I don't know if I actually used that terminology.
That would have been sick though if you did. Bro, I'm calling it an airstrike. What the fuck?
So he was a ways away, and he's like, I'll definitely come pick you up, but I won't be there for 2-3 hours or something. And I was already broken at this point, but I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep riding, and we'll meet somewhere. That day, I think
define broken.
Give
us the scoop.
Right?
How bad was it?
I was extremely emotional. Just like I felt so bad from the ride, and then to feel like I gave up was really hard. So it was raining, so nobody knew I was crying, which is good. But I ended up making it.
Why put so much pressure on yourself? You just wanted to do every segment?
Right. I wanted to, because so today I posted a picture of our route, our line, and there's a break in it, and it still just kills me that it's not a continuous line. Ezra thinks he's going to get a tattoo after this of the line, so he's going to get a line, and if I got a matching one, I'd be like, hey, just leave that spot blank.
Put an asterisk right there. Be like, I'm coming back to that section.
So
yeah, but I'm like,
it was a huge day still.
Yeah, you're doing hard shit.
I made it 95 miles.
Massive climbing
with a full-on mountain pass pretty early on, and then Abraham picked me up at a restaurant and took me the last 30. And then once Ezra knew that I was getting picked up, he full-on TT'd it and just ripped to the motel. Just barely missed kickoff.
Yeah, so that's what I was about to ask. What happened with the game?
It was the worst football game I've ever seen.
Wait, did you make it?
So when I got to the hotel, I think it was second quarter or something like that.
Okay.
So got to watch most of the terrible football game where the Packers got eliminated from the playoffs.
That was just like the worst day for you.
Yeah, it was the worst day.
You probably cried twice, like once when you bailed, once when the
Packers lost. It was a rough one. And then, of course, Ezra and I had to have a heart-to-heart because the next day on the schedule was going to be worse. It was going to be more climbing than day 5 was and more miles. So instead of the original route that Ezra planned to take us up to Silver City into the real mountains, we ducked south and hugged the border, and actually had some a little bit easier days, a lot easier days, which helped me a lot.
Yeah. How do you train? This is something I want to know. Even, Stephanie here in Austin, y'all have hills. They all have some pretty steep hills.
Yeah.
I guess this is the closest place I could go to like find a hill to train
Right.
on. But I mean, how do you train for elevation and those big climbs on a fully loaded bike?
Exactly. And honestly, I really hadn't, at least
You
not.
probably need to start south to west, you know?
There you go.
Yeah.
But I mean, because I was on the trainer over the Christmas break. I said, I've got to do a century. You know, it's been a long time, and trainer centuries are obviously different than out in the real world. But, you know, I spent a day on the trainer and it sucked and all that. It was actually the Rafa 500.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, well, we might as well get that done. So I put in a really big week that week to try to amp myself up. And I was on a pretty strict training program on the trainer itself. And before that, I was riding all my group rides on the 520 with a bunch of PBR tall boys slammed in the panniers. Cause I'm like, it's easy math. Each one weighs a pound. So, you know, how many pounds and then everybody would give me a hard time. How many beers are you carrying today? I offered them to everybody. Nobody ever took one.
Yeah.
They were warm past blue ribbon tall boys. Nobody wanted to lighten my load.
Yeah, man. No, that's a great way to train. Throw some. I mean, that's what I did whenever we were going to Arizona. The only thing I could do is put on as much weight as I possibly could,
Right.
and ride my bike around.
Just ride your bike.
If I can find some wind, I ride into it, but that's about all you can do.
Right, and that's kind of what I was doing too.
Yeah.
But it still didn't prepare me for the full on
Well,
brutal.
Go ahead, Ezra.
My bad. That was a lot. Sometimes we were originally after Arizona. I was like, oh, let's climb up to Silver City. Like, why not climb up to 9,000 feet? I'm sorry, Ben.
You tried to kill your friend. How was it for you? No big deal?
It was definitely like hard days.
Yeah. But doable.
Doable, right? Like, you know, it was doable, right? We're compromising in different directions.
Yeah.
I might ride a few extra miles, but honestly, I think it's like after that day, like that heart to heart, I think we found like a really good spot for the rest of the trip. Like it started out just being too intense. Like Ben straight up said, I feel like I'm on a training trip, a training camp right now. And it really was for the first few days. We were like 8 hours on the bike every single day. And we kind of just like needed that breaking point for me to just relax a little bit and be like, you know what? Let's go south through the flat part of New Mexico. Let's, you know, cross the border and go to Mexico for a night and hang out there. Let's start stopping at diners. And I think the day after Safford, we like stopped at our first diner and had, you know, tiny little hole in the wall diner in Duncan, Arizona. No one was there. We had an absolutely fantastic meal. And it was just a good reset on the trip of like, yes, I want to ride a bunch. Yes, I want to ride hard at times, but let's find a good balance of having a really good time, stopping and checking out towns, but also cruising miles. And I think for the rest of the trip, we've done a really good job balancing those two things.
Riding with people, especially like on a longer distance, can be a really challenging thing to do, to find a pace that, I mean, nobody is usually on the same exact pace as another person. And so I think that can be challenging. I was going to ask Ben, how is it going now?
Better.
He says it's better.
It definitely is. Like, honestly, the climbing is what has ruined most of my days that have turned out poorly. It's just my bike weighs a lot. I don't have the FTP Ezra has. So like it's just I go slower, especially when elevation gets involved. But we did get better as riding as a team. I have no shame grabbing Ezra's wheel all day long. It gives him more work and takes a little less from me.
Yeah.
It helps that balance again. So it has definitely gotten better.
Well, y'all both knew, right, that you both you know each other. You knew what your fitness is to an extent. You knew your approach. He knows his. And so I assume, I don't know how much you guys talked about it, but probably in the back of your minds, you both knew
we're going to have to adjust.
Some compromise along the way is gonna happen,
Definitely.
It sounds like. So what is you said a low point. What about what have you enjoyed the most so far?
Yeah, I think the parts that I've enjoyed the most are like when we stop and take in the local culture. Like
I mean, it's just gonna edit to where it says where we stop.
When we stop.
I'm sorry.
No, definitely. When we have a long day and we roll through a town and Ezra's just like, we don't have time to stop. I'm like, wow, well, that sucks. Where when we're making good time and we roll through and there's a coffee shop cafe and we're like, hey, want to stop in and get a cup? Yeah, of course I do. And those have been where we have the really authentic interactions with the locals, and it's a lot of fun.
I resonate with your story. My Arizona trip that I went on, it was on the podcast, but Miles and I had to separate because on day 3 it was like 3:00 in the day, already 40, 50 miles in. And we were now supposed to climb like 20 miles up the AZT to like 9,000 feet and then come down. And it was the most remote section of the whole route. And we went to a burger joint and I had to have a heart to heart with him. I'm like, it ain't happening, bro. Like, and I told him, I was like, I'm not trying to race. I'm not a racer. Yep. I have no desire to go to the most remote part of this route where there's no resources and get myself more in over my head and potentially someone has to come get me. Like that doesn't sound fun. And so I just had to have a heart to heart with myself, be like, listen, you go, you're feeling it. You got it. So you go, and we met up just the next day. I just went to the base of the mountain. He went up the mountain.
Looped around, sure.
And so, I mean, I don't know. But one thing I said about that is that if you sign up for adventure, don't be surprised when you find it, right?
Oh,
and part of the fun is these challenges that come up, and it kind of sucks in the moment, but looking back, these are really important lessons that you're learning about yourself and opportunities that you're giving yourself. And, it's just an adventure. You got to figure it out as you go, So your favorite part has been stopping. Got it. No. What's been your favorite state?
Oh,
you've only been through 3 or
4. I mean, well, we haven't been through Texas yet.
So you're in 4 right now.
We're in the 4th state.
Yeah. So obviously Texas is the best.
Obviously, that's a clear one. But
well, I know you were talking about the hill country.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to hear. I remember you, Ezra. You were posting on your Instagram stories about just how beautiful the hill country was. And I'm a lifelong Texan, and I do like the hill country, but I think it's one of those things where the grass is greener on the other side, and so I kind of take for granted maybe though it's here. And so what are you seeing when you roll through?
Yeah. So the 2 other times I've ridden across the country, we entered the state at Texarkana and went across like the northern half of the state.
Yeah.
Texas was always the point in the trip where we called it the doldrums, where things just got less exciting, right? Like the kids would just get burnt out. And it was like a week in Texas, and northern Texas, not necessarily flat, but not necessarily like beautiful, right? Like we were just through these tiny little oil towns, and it was kind of just a grind. It was, get to Roswell, New Mexico, because there's like the Alien Museum, and New Mexico's great. I love New Mexico. Coming into Texas, I knew we were coming through the hill country, and I was excited because I've just heard, stories of the hill country, right? Like following other people on social media who are living in this area. And it really was like from Leakey, Texas, through, I don't remember the name of the other town, but through like Vanderpool, Texas. Gorgeous. Like there were 3 different climbs. It just went from the Western United States, which at this point in the year is like kind of mundane, right? There's not a whole lot of live, like even in Arizona, like it's not really green, right? we got there and it was so green. We had just spent a whole bunch of time like riding on like state Texas highways. And now we were on these tiny little ranch roads. And they're like these beautiful, twisty, turny roads and these small Texas towns where everyone is just so freaking nice. Like just Southern hospitality, Texan hospitality. So nice. That first day into the hill country, we stopped at this little barbecue place and had a brisket sandwich, which honestly was like the greatest sandwich I've ever had in my life. Like I had to hold back not ordering another one immediately. And I knew we had a bunch of climbing to do. I just had the sandwich and I was like, this is incredible. And then we, the climbs were definitely like punchy. And so I would.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
Or pause you? You mentioned Texas hospitality. I'm curious about their hospitality face to face versus while they're in their cars.
Honestly, I don't think we've had any really bad interactions with drivers. We definitely got a few middle fingers, but that was in Arizona. We've got a few honks, but really like people will like cheer us on, roll down their windows, like give us plenty of space, Yeah, honestly, like rolling into Austin, we're trying to get cars to pass us. And it's like, please pass us.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to pass us because they didn't want to get too close and they didn't,
That's one of the downsides of people in cars don't know how to interact with cyclists. They're either assholes to us or they're way too polite or, but unless you're a cyclist, I think people have a hard time knowing how to navigate other cyclists on the road,
That, and I don't think people know how wide their cars are. I think they think their
That
car
too.
is like the entire lane. And so they have to like cross over the entire yellow line. And I'm like, no, you can cross like a quarter of the yellow line, half the yellow line. And if you go slow, like I'm not going to get freaked out, right? If you just like pass us nice and quick, it's great. But they'll wait until there's these massive gaps and then one car will go. And then I look behind and there's just a train of cars. And I'm like, within this train of cars, 99% of them are going to be super chill, not that big of a deal. It's that 1% of car that's going to be all pissed off. And then eventually they're going to come to us and be like, oh, it's the damn cyclists that are slowing us down. And that's the thing that kind of scares me, right?
Yeah.
Like leading these cross-country trips with kids,
You might get blamed when yes, you're there, but it's other people not knowing how to pass and how to interact with cyclists that's really causing the problem, which is unfortunate because I know they're trying to be nice.
Yeah.
It's like a catch-22. Did y'all see the lady? Y'all, I'm sure you did. The lady, well, y'all been on your bikes, so maybe not. The lady in Arkansas that passed a group of cyclists in her Dodge and gunned it. Yeah, y'all don't know about this. I just
No.
interviewed them. So this picture like broke the internet for a day. It broke out of the cycling community. I saw it all over Reddit. It was on the news. It was on driver websites and all this stuff. And so yeah, it was this bike race. I can't remember which one he said, but the lady just they were all over on the ride and it was gravel road, and she gunned it and went around a corner, and then 30 seconds later they go around the corner and the lady's like that. And she's irate apparently, and they like checked on her, and he was actually like head as Wolfer, Wilderness First Aid or whatever that is. And so he like went and checked, and she declined to be helped. And so he's like, so I took a picture. But we were talking about that's one of the very few times we're used to seeing shitty behavior in cars, especially towards cyclists. But that's the only story I'm ever aware of where there's some instant karma for that. Usually, I mean, if anything, man, people just like get away with shit. It's like you might get a ticket for failure to control speed, but no matter, you just hit somebody. Anyway, I'm glad that Texas drivers are being nice to you.
Honestly, everyone has been majority nice. Like we have not had any issues, knock on wood, but it's been good. And
that's awesome.
I think that's also like just being a responsible cyclist too, right? It's not riding in like the middle of the lane when you don't need to, right? It's recognizing that cars also have places to be. And really like rolling into Austin, like there was a big transportation truck. And it was clear that the driver like wasn't comfortable passing us. And I looked back and it was a line of 20 cars. And I was like, Ben, let's just pull over to the side of the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're touring. We're not in a big rush to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we just pulled over to the side of the road. He gave us like 2 honks, waved at us, passed by. All the other cars passed by. And then we continued on our way, and it was great. It was, very friendly interaction. Just like we want to be good representatives, right?
I appreciate that. Yeah, we were just talking about this on that other podcast. It hasn't released yet, but if we're assholes, then we're kind of representing the whole cycling community. And so what you said about taking the whole lane, yes, your entitlement. Yes, you have the right
for
to
sure.
be
Be
there.
assertive. If that's the safe thing to do, like do it. But at the same time, also recognize that you're on a tiny little bike and they're in a massive.
It's just courteous. We would like the drivers to be courteous of us, and we should be courteous to them. And let's all like figure this out, because nobody wants to get hit or have bad interactions with cars. That's a losing proposition.
Share the road goes both ways.
I appreciate what you said, and we were just talking about the same thing. Is when you're out there, you're representing cyclists. So when you do something good like that, they're going to remember, like, oh, okay, well, maybe they're not all assholes or whatever, So I think, I like that perspective for sure. Do you all want to talk about diabetes?
Sure, let's talk about diabetes. Let's get Stephanie in here.
Do we want to hop over to some diabetes talk? Enter Stephanie Hall. All right, take the mic. We've already heard from Mr. Ezra. No, we've heard just the right amount, but it's your turn.
All right. My name's Stephanie. I have been in Austin for about a year now, and also type 1 diabetic.
Let's start there, because I am a dummy. Is type 1 you're born with?
So you're not usually born with it, although some people are or diagnosed like very young, but it's known to be like autoimmune. So it could, usually you hear of people being diagnosed like in their teenage years. Is usually when people generally are diagnosed. There are people who are diagnosed later in life, but usually if adolescent is like the traditional age of diagnosis.
So when were you diagnosed?
I was 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right in
So
there.
I was, very traditional diagnosis.
What about you, Ezra? Just when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed when I was 11.
Interesting. All right. So do you know, is there a reason why it's that time of? Maybe it's puberty. I bet it has to do with your body's like changing.
Maybe the part of it that is like the autoimmune reaction is your immune system attacking your pancreas and your islet cells. So your immune system obviously attacks when you want it to, against like some virus or something, but it could also attack when you don't necessarily want it to. And so usually caused by some sort of, you say you get really sick, around that age. So maybe like your first serious illness could be caused by that.
So I've only, I've known more of it, but when I was in college, my upstairs roommate, he was a type 1 diabetic. And one day my room and I heard them wrestling upstairs. And so we just went upstairs to like, I don't know, hang out. And we walked in and they weren't wrestling. He was on the floor having an anaphylactic shock anaphylactic shock.
Yeah, probably like a seizure situation.
Seizure, okay.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah.
Okay, thank
shock
you.
of some sort, but seizure.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't really know. So feel free to correct me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time I saw the dangers or, one of the symptoms of diabetes. And it was actually really scary.
Yeah. So I'm lucky. I usually can like feel my low blood sugars, and I've never actually gone to that state. But likely he was like in a low blood sugar state. So low blood sugar is a problem immediately if you don't eat something, and high blood sugar will eventually be a problem. It's kind of a problem short time, like you feel like crap, but it's not like an immediate problem. Say if like you're racing, obviously you don't really want to race with high blood sugar, but life happens also. But yeah, but he was probably in a low blood sugar state.
During COVID, I think, during COVID, but the first year, 2020, didn't you find out you had some kind of medical thing where you figured it out and it like changed your life almost, it seemed like.
Yes. So I now I'm like very adamant for everyone to get blood work done if you have like the resources and healthcare to do so. I went to a regular endocrinologist checkup. I had been a lazy diabetic and hadn't gotten blood work done in a while, moving and such, whatever. And got the blood work back and get a call, send it over to my sister who's a nurse, and get a call from my sister, and she's like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm at work. I'm in a meeting." And she's like, "I don't know how to tell you this, but like you potentially have cancer." And like red blood cells, white blood cells, hemoglobin, everything was like messed up. And so
Which is an indicator of possible cancer?
Yes. So her patient population is usually like a lot sicker than me. And so she's used to like analyzing blood work that looks from sicker patients. So I called my doctor and she was like, "You need to go to your PCP," which I don't have one. Now I do. Or you need to go to the hospital to get a redraw. So I ended up going to the hospital, got a redraw. It confirmed. Biggest concern was hemoglobin, which mine was 7.1. Around 7 to like under 7 is when they'll give you a blood transfusion.
Oh, wow.
So they offered that to me. I was kind of like, nah, like I've been up and walking around. If I'd been like passing out, like if say your hemoglobin would drop fast, you'd probably pass out at that level, since I've been walking around like that. And I had honestly just like really frustrated on the bike a lot, just never feeling really great. Resonate with Ben's story about crying on the bike, because that definitely happened multiple times, just getting dropped by everybody, no real explanation. And then
so you felt like you're putting in a lot of effort and just not seeing any.
Yeah, and then I got 4 treatments of IV iron. Now I take iron like daily, and that seems like it was it. It seems like there's no big health problem. It seems like I just like slowly became really anemic. So I'm really thankful. Obviously, that's not anything bigger than that, but.
Were you mad at your sister for scaring you?
Immediately. No, her concern was valid. So like the stage after that.
So it was more like she just wanted you to take care of it.
She wanted me to know like how serious things could possibly be. Yeah, and without knowing like what's going on, it was in the realm of possibility for sure. And then after that, I started, honestly, that like fueled my addiction for like racing and riding, because I felt so good, like so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, ever since then, it's like I've loved racing so much. It's so fun. Like I was always a competitive person. I was just like really bad.
Yeah.
And like,
well, I didn't know you were bad. I'm just, I'm like, yeah, that's what I rode around the street.
But then to see all this like hard work, and then see it kind of like start to pay off. I mean, instantly addicted.
Yeah.
So, and weird. Austin also has helped fuel that addiction, because it's such a race-oriented bike community.
Yeah. What's it like? Talk about that a little bit.
Austin cycling?
Yeah. And what the community and riding is like around here.
So, I mean, I'm still like pretty new to Austin. There's a little bit of everything for sure. It's definitely the most amount of bikes I've seen in a city, any city I've lived in. I was near DC before that. You can find any type of riding. I'm sure you're familiar with like the Driveway, which is the weekly crit series.
I've been one
time. Yeah. So that fuels a lot of, I think, Austin's like race community as well. I feel like there's more women's teams in Austin than there is probably a lot of other places, which is really, really cool.
Speaking of women teams, didn't you just get picked up by Ultraviolet Racing?
I did. And I distinctly remember listening to Joe's podcast with you. I was picking up a prescription in a hurricane, actually, on my bike, and was listening to her podcast. It was like, I remember it so distinctly, because everyone was like, "What the hell are you doing?" But
I was going to ask the same question.
But her talking about it, that was like the first kind of introduction, and I was like, yeah, that's some shit I would love to get behind. But there are a lot of other good teams in Austin too, and the community has been really supportive.
What does Violet do? I think I saw them up at Tulsa Tough doing a crit race. They do all kinds of.
The group is mixed. So there are some people who are planning on not racing a ton this year. There are some other people who are planning racing more, doing road. I've actually never raced a road race. I had my first one. Well, we'll see how that goes. But my goals this year, more like long races. So
like the East Texas Showdown?
Like the East Testicle Showdown.
That just became a new event. Let's just call the race what it is. A testicle showdown.
Yes. And I'm committing myself to ride through the night. So that's like my commitment.
Have you?
And I'm trying to talk people into riding through the night. So
yeah, how's that going?
It's going well. My top people to talk into, my sister, Alicia, who's on the team, who was on the podcast, and Kyle, who was also on the podcast.
So are they all registered?
I hope so. I think I'm pretty sure.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure they are. Yeah.
I know you are. Yeah, I don't know. There's 100 people, so I can't really keep track. I haven't even looked, to be honest. I know who some of them are, but
I don't
need to go through.
Alex Maldonado, I don't know if he's doing it again, but if he is, he might be another candidate for me to talk into.
So we met at the Bikes for Death spring camp out in 2021, I think.
Yes.
Was that your first bike packing trip or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I totally thought you were a rookie. No.
No.
So when did you get into bike packing? I was just kidding about you being a rookie.
Oh, you're good. Like the past year, pretty new.
Okay. So it wasn't, yeah.
It wasn't, yeah. I've only done a few trips, nothing ever long. Usually just like overnighters.
So the East Texas Showdown is going to be your longest one?
That will definitely be my longest, yeah. But
I'm excited.
I'm also planning on, like with the no sleeping aspect. It is a bike packing race, but also I don't plan on packing like it is if I'm planning on not sleeping. So yeah, we'll see.
Well, I think I mentioned that on Instagram when we were chatting about it, but that's why I like the shorter distance, because if you're new to bike packing, it's more accessible. If you're fast or you're in that group where you want to find out, you don't have to take anything, and you can just take, you just roll through towns, grab whatever you need as you go, and go pretty light, and you could knock it. I mean, I think some fast times are really available, but obviously not raining is gonna help. So we'll see. Do you have a goal other than not sleeping?
So I think 36 hours because of Unbound cutoff times. I think that'll be my goal.
So that's I'm not going to try to do math in my head.
like 11. So it's like 11. It's really doable if you think about it, because it's like 11 miles per hour.
Yeah. I think you go faster though. I think you go faster is what I was going to challenge you on.
Well, 100%. But also then you have to like stop right a little bit at some point and restock for stuff. But that's just like a good
at least 36.
Like a mark.
Hey, you do it whatever time you want. I don't care. I mean, I haven't even ridden the whole thing. I keep wanting to go out there and do it, and I haven't.
That death loop, though.
I love that death loop.
So I know that death loop from Prison City. I don't know if you've done Prison City. Yeah, it's February 26th.
Okay.
I'm gonna go out there and do that race as it's a 60-mile gravel race. 60.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the death loop was just a result of having to change the route from there was like a road that wasn't very safe, and so it just kind of worked out like that. And I wasn't too sure about it, but after the first year, I absolutely love it, because you sit out there and you get to spectate everybody, and they ride past the bullet or they get sucked into the bullet and they never leave. And so it's kind of a fun test, like towards the end, like, are you going to do the last 40 miles or not? So it'll be fun to find out. So speaking of the diabetes, how does that like impact your racing and riding and stuff? Is it just like not a big deal? I actually thought the medical stuff, the iron deficiency was more about your diabetes, but apparently
a lot of people with diabetes also have other autoimmune issues, which I do. I don't think that anemia was related to like anything else. I just think it was like another problem. As far as riding with diabetes, I always feel like that's kind of a interesting thing to answer, because I have a hard time knowing any different. But generally, like if I'll go out on a ride, the first hour is kind of like when your body decides like, okay, what are we doing? Like if I'm going to go low, it's probably like within the first hour. And then after that, I find that I usually can like study out longer stuff. I feel like.
So how are you managing
definitely
that?
Have to.
Just by eating? Are you watching your numbers?
Yeah. So I wear a continuous glucose monitor.
Is that the one that sticks in your side?
Yeah. Ezra is not wearing a CGM, which riding across the country, I have no idea.
Okay, well,
how that's possible. but it's like very expensive. And if you don't have good insurance, it's a luxury, honestly.
So how does it work?
It sends your blood sugar to your phone like
Oh,
every
wow.
5 minutes, but it's like a needle and then a cannula inside. And so when you insert it, the needle comes out. So it's just a cannula. You don't feel anything. And keep like one on for like 7 days or however long it stays.
You have to stick it in yourself?
Yeah. It's not really painful though. Yeah.
I've kind of gotten over my phobia of that. I used to think it would be like pretty wild to do it, but I've given myself some stick and poke tattoos, and I tried.
If you can do that, it's like not painful. Yeah.
When I tried what is that? Hormone replacement therapy or whatever.
Oh.
Testosterone. Yeah, testosterone. TRT. Don't know. Y'all aren't old enough. Okay. Apparently, when you get older, you're supposed to inject the testosterone in your ass because you are not producing it anymore or something. And so now that I'm an old ass, I started doing that. I didn't even notice a difference, so I stopped. But I had to give myself shots in the ass.
You heard this first here. Patrick is doping. I feel it impacts it, but it also, I mean, I should be eating anyways during a race. So
you're just watching the numbers and you're like, okay, I got to eat something.
Yeah. So the kind of unfortunate thing is like, I'm not on a pump. So say I'm racing and I see my blood sugars going high. It's like, do I just keep racing or do I stop and take insulin? And it was just a quick endeavor, but would require like chasing back on. So that's kind of the one thing that I haven't really quite figured out. And then also,
so you take insulin and you have to inject it?
Yes. So every time you eat, basically, is the easiest way to think about it. And then a long-acting insulin. So there's a couple of different ways to manage type 1, but the way I manage type 1 is with long-acting insulin and then short-acting during mealtime or if my blood sugar is high. But occasionally, say like a crit race, it's like really exciting. Like your adrenaline is really high.
Yeah.
I might actually see a spike in blood sugar, which is also interesting and annoying because if you don't know which way it's going to go, it's like a crapshoot.
Really? So you just have to kind of put in the effort and then you see
where, yeah, I mean, that really only happens if I'm like crit racing or like from the gun, just so excited. And then it, again, within an hour, it usually like steadies out one way or the other. So,
interesting. Yeah. You're going to find out what kind of day you're having after the first hour. What kind of rider? I see. I'm following you on Instagram, so you're always out riding. It looks like you've got some good gravel routes, and you're putting in some pretty big days. What kind of riding are you doing?
A little bit of everything. Like my personal favorite is like exploring new areas. Soon I'm going to kind of run out of that without like driving. But yeah, a little bit of everything. When I was training for Rad Dirt Fest, I was doing like more fun, adventurous stuff. Like I biked from this apartment 130 miles to an Airbnb and then, stayed the night at the Airbnb. So I think that's also another reason why I am really excited for longer stuff. Like the long training rides, I generally like love long training rides. I love planning them, figuring out like new places to go. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I agree. I used to try to think I wanted to be fast back in the day, and then I tried it. And I was like, I'd rather go slow and camp at night or whatever. What's your next event?
Prison City.
Okay.
February 26th. Lago road race 5th and 6th. I think that's it.
And those are all with or both with ultraviolet racing?
Yeah.
So how does that work? I've never been on a team. Do y'all just say
it's a good
like
question? I'm still figuring that out.
Just like, hey, I want to go race this one. Do you want to race?
Yeah.
Kind of like just get some people on the same.
Yeah, these are all like really early season races.
Yeah,
especially like the gravel stuff. Like I'll put something out on Slack and be like, hey, who wants to come? And then sure enough, like 1 or 2 people, Alicia, Nat Cab, Joe, like almost half the team rides gravel. So I really can appreciate that and usually can convince someone to go out or someone who I'm friends with to go out with me.
So now that you're not anemic, what are your goals with cycling and racing? Like how seriously are you pursuing that kind of stuff?
We'll see. Like road racing, I think I would at least like to be Cat 3 by the end of the year. Maybe do one USA crit is kind of what I'm saying right now. Though unfortunately, like the one that's like the biggest party that I would like to go to is Tulsa, and it's the weekend after Unbound XL. So
Oh wow.
Do it. Do it. It's the ultimate double. Unbound straight into Tulsa. Love it.
Yeah, and then we can podcast about it.
yeah, sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I'll be at Unbound this year.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. Working.
Okay.
Yeah. Kuat hired me to go and
Sweet.
like cover the event. I don't know what
Have
I'm
you
doing.
been to Unbound?
No, never been.
Okay. It's such a party. So I volunteered last year. Best decision ever. Like, we're talking about how hard it is to get into all these races. If someone wants to go to Unbound, you should absolutely volunteer. Like, you have such a good interaction with all the other cyclists. There are so many shakeout rides and good riding to do out there. I mean, you have to volunteer for 10 hours, I think. But you still have plenty of time to go ride. Riding is like great out there. You still go to the expo. I mean, I feel like the only reason why I chose, well, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why I was like, I'm okay with doing XL and like almost missing all of that this year is because I kind of got the whole other side last year. And then this year I'll, go miss almost everything. And just
Are you doing XL this year?
Yes.
Oh, wow. How hard is that to get into?
The XL?
Yeah. Is it not as hard as the other ones?
I have no idea.
You just know you got in.
Well, because so if you volunteer, that's where, I guess that's where I was
Yeah.
going with that. If you volunteer, you get you pay for your entry still, but you get entry in for the next year.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, cool.
yeah, I mean, if anyone like really wants to go and has bad luck, then you should go up with your friends who are racing and then volunteer.
Yeah, that's a pro tip. I've only done one race, and so I don't know much. It's weird that I host a race because I don't know what I'm doing. And maybe some ways that's good because I'll just do it however I want to. And, I'm not too worried about trying to like do it the exact same way. But on the other side, there's some things I could learn, like, hey, have volunteers, but give them a free entry next year. Like
Yes.
that's a pretty cool tip.
Yes.
Yeah. Ezra, do you want to talk about diabetes?
Sure.
Steph and I would like to know, how did you... We want to know how you're doing with so you don't use a device and you're riding across country just all willy-nilly.
So I don't currently have a continuous blood glucose monitor. So what I do is I prick my finger multiple times per day. And so I just get not like a continuous line of blood glucose numbers, but just sporadic spots.
Oh, you're building you're like plotting a graph essentially with your blood.
Exactly. So really with touring, my blood sugars are usually pretty stable and pretty solid. Honestly, the issue I ran into last year, especially with North to South Colorado, is the intensity of racing. And then I think it's up to there's 30 different factors that can affect your blood glucose. And one of them that's pretty severe is sleep deprivation. And so the first night of North to South Colorado, I didn't sleep at all. I just rode through the night, and then next day, and then that second night, I got 2 hours of sleep. So not a whole lot of sleep there. And with a race like that, I'm usually expecting my blood sugars to constantly be plummeting, right? Because the two things that can kind of bring your blood sugars down are insulin or exercise. Those are the two main ones. And so with that much riding, I was expecting my blood sugars to constantly be going down for me to just eat a lot, right? And I was eating a bunch. And on that third day, I'd only slept 2 hours and I was day 3 of riding. My blood sugars were kind of out of control. They were super high. At the same time, your sensitivity to insulin changes based on how much you're riding. So throughout this trip, I started with the amount of insulin I take normally. I won't get into the numbers, but just like a normal everyday amount of insulin. And throughout this trip, I've had to cut back on that amount of insulin just because I am exercising so much and my body is very sensitive to insulin right now. At the same time, last night when I was taking my basal insulin or my long-acting insulin, which is an insulin that lasts 24 hours, I brought that number up a little bit because I knew I wasn't going to be exercising a bunch today and it was going to be that second day. So my body is a little bit less sensitive to the insulin, which means I need a little bit more of it. For the divide, for my racing this year, thankfully I have better health insurance, one of the perks of working at REI. and I'll hopefully have a continuous, I will have a continuous blood glucose monitor for the divide, or otherwise my mom won't let me do the divide.
Maybe your mom could buy you one.
They're very expensive. That's
how much are they without insurance? Do you know?
Steph, do you know exact numbers?
I do have numbers. So like the transmitter is like what goes into it, and then the sensors you have to buy monthly. Both run about like $700. So you'd be looking, transmitters every 6 months, $700, and then the sensors would be probably like $700 a month.
And then you got to pay for insulin too.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So it definitely adds up.
Yeah. Diabetes is a super, super expensive disease to have, especially if you don't have insurance or you are underinsured. It's honestly a major issue, which Congress kind of bats around the bush, like talking about making insulin more affordable. But yeah, there's a whole lot of diabetics out there who are severely underinsured, who are paying for their diabetes medication and equipment out of pocket. And it's not really talked about a whole lot.
Yeah, those are the kinds of things where like more of a universal, I don't know enough about universal healthcare in general to have like a firm opinion, but if you're born with diabetes, it's kind of like, all right, let's make sure you have what you need to just be a normal person. You shouldn't be dealt a bad hand, essentially. It's like, okay, sucks to be you, but now you got to do X, Y, and Z, and you're gonna have to pay a lot for it.
And
like that's a bummer.
It's pretty horrifying in the United States that we have people who will literally go to Canada to purchase insulin and then bring it back to the United States because insulin is affordable in Canada. In the United States, we just talked about how much a CGM costs. A month's supply of insulin, if you were buying it retail, is like $2,000 a month.
Jesus.
I don't know a whole lot of people who can afford $2,000 of anything a month.
And this is a life. You'll have healthcare. Yeah. If you can afford, you'll have.
And this is not a medication that's optional, optional, right?
Yeah,
this is a medication you need, or you will die. End of story. Like you have to have the insulin.
Yeah, this isn't your fault. If you fall and break your arm and you go to the doctor and you need to get an X-ray and all this, okay, well, yeah, maybe you should pay for that. But if you're just born with diabetes, that's a bummer.
Just like one quick thing. The other thing I was going to say is like the cool thing is there is like good technology that's coming out. The gap is like CGMs, for example. A lot of the reasons why insurance won't properly cover it is because it's not necessarily needed. Like the standard, it's not yet part of like the standard of care. And so they can get away with not covering it or not properly covering it. So like I think even me, it's been a while, but usually you have to go through like a prior authorization process to kind of like prove that you need it, when it's like clearly anyone who is type 1 would benefit greatly from having one. Even though, yeah, I can prick my finger as many times as I want today, but it's still not going to be the same care. But their insurance companies can say, oh, well, you could just not.
I don't know enough about insurance companies really to have an informed opinion other than I really don't like them. That's the only thing I'm really sure about.
That's fair.
I was just someone else on Instagram, another cyclist was just posted they had a broken hand and he had to go get a second opinion before the insurance company would pay for it because he had it's like, my hand isn't going to get better in a week while I go get it's like, no, it's broken. You got to fucking fix it. It's crazy. Sorry. Tangent.
Kurt Ruffschneider, right?
That's Kurt. What?
That's Kurt, right?
Yeah, Kurt.
Yep.
Yeah. I actually forgot who it was for a second, but yeah, that was Kurt. So one thing I was thinking about to ask you, Ezra, was like, and I was thinking about this while Stephanie was talking, is that is like ultra endurance racing or even like these longer rides, is it more doable with diabetes versus like road racing where, I mean, you can't, like a crit race, you can't take a break. Is it just always shitty?
I think it's a little bit of a give and take because with a crit race, you're done in an hour, right?
Okay. Okay.
Honestly, you can race a crit race with a high blood sugar, right? Like I've done my fair share of, finishing crits and finishing road races with not great blood sugars. A low blood sugar, a lot more difficult. You can try to eat as many gels as you possibly can while staying in the pack, But, well on Novo, it was a legitimate reason to fall off the back of the race and not perform at the level you're capable of performing because your blood sugar is low. Obviously, that's something you're trying to address before the race, and it's something that you learn about as you race more. With ultra endurance racing, it just gets a lot more complicated because you're out there for days, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to be done in 90 minutes. Like, it's fine that my blood sugar is 300. When your blood sugar is 300 and it's like, I have another 150 miles to ride, you kind of have to address it right there. So it definitely adds some challenges.
Well, I think this is a great thing to possibly talk about. I don't have diabetes, but people that are listening that have diabetes and want to go ride, hell, they could ride 100 miles and sleep overnight, or 1,000 miles. Any tips or any advice for, and maybe we can ask both of you, like how you manage yours on these longer trips that maybe help some other people to manage theirs better?
Yeah. So I guess my main tip would be like testing in kind of two forms, right? It's like testing your blood sugar is so important, because if you don't know what your blood sugar is, then you don't know how to respond to it, right? Which would be either high blood sugar, take more insulin, low blood sugar, eat more food. And so really when I'm racing, it is part of my like routine. When I pull into a gas station to get a resupply, the first thing I do is test my blood sugar, right? Because just based off of that, if my blood sugar is high, I might pick different foods in the gas station compared to when my blood sugar is like low or kind of trending low. I'm going straight for, the sugar, right? The good stuff. And then I guess another form of testing would be like build up gradually, right? If you are a type 1 diabetic and you want to do the Tour Divide, you should probably do some shorter races before you jump in the divide to know how your body is going to respond. You kind of need to like gradually build up the number of days, build up the number of hours you can ride continuously without sleeping, and see how that sleep deprivation like affects your blood sugar, and just kind of develop all those routines. One really cool thing, a little divide history, is a type 1 diabetic has won the divide. Brian Lucindo,
I don't know.
Won it in, I believe it was 2017. He has a blog with a great blog post about it and talks pretty openly about everything he did on the divide. That's a great resource.
Yeah,
or honestly, if you have questions, reach out to me or Stephanie. Once again, we're not medical professionals, but I feel like between the two of us, we have a lot of experience.
None of us are medical professionals? What?
And Stephanie's the one working in biotech, so she's more qualified than me.
Yeah. Yeah, and she has type 1 diabetes too, so.
But that's like one of the things that I love doing is, not giving medical advice, but just like sharing my experience.
Yeah.
And also showing that you can be a type 1 diabetic and not just like do these events, but be competitive in these events. And I think Team Nova Nordisk has done a great job on that. And, I'm doing my own thing now, but I love being able to do that too. Just, anytime, any of my mom's friends' kids get diabetes, like I love talking to them. I know Stephanie the same way. She recently helped diagnose a young girl with diabetes. Like someone sent her a message with these symptoms, and Stephanie was like, you need to take her to the hospital right now.
Blood work.
Exactly. Blood work, testing. It's like, it's not hard to just get a simple finger prick and see if your blood sugar is elevated, you probably have diabetes.
Dude, you've never taken a kid to get a shot before, but okay.
That is true.
He's like, it's no problem. Just take them and shove it. No, I know what you're saying, but kids always overreact. But
Overreact, but really it's better to just like
better to
get them to do it some way
It's
rather
better
than have them be
for
walking
sure.
around with a blood sugar of 700 and go into diabetic ketoacidosis and that whole can of worms.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just talking shit. You're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. What is the general sense? And I guess what I'm trying to understand is you said Team Novus was an example, and you're trying to be an example and of being able to accomplish, whether you want to race or go long distances with type 1 diabetes. Is it kind of like when you get it, is the what am I trying to say?
Like the stigma of the disease.
Stigma, that's exactly. Yeah, what is the stigma that you have to overcome? That's what I'm trying to ask you. Thank you.
It's changed a ton in recent years, right? If you were diagnosed with diabetes 50, 60, 70 years ago, it was almost like a death sentence, right? Like the technology was there. The insulin that we take wasn't as good as it is now. And really it's all kind of changed within the past 20, 30 years where type 1 diabetics have been able to compete at super high levels and have been able to do pretty much any job out there. There's still a few jobs you can't be like an airline pilot and take insulin. There's a few jobs you can't be in the military and take insulin. I guess
that makes sense. You don't want someone to have like a... No, okay. I don't know why I should immediately have an opinion. That's a good point. I'm basing it off of when that visual image of seeing my friend on the floor and like thinking about that guy driving but we'll talk about that in just a second. I'll let you correct me.
Yeah, so it's really, showing that you can pretty much do anything with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
And be successful with it. You can have this disease and live a really, really high quality, full life, and you don't need to like limit yourself.
So it's a disease,
an autoimmune condition. I don't know the exact terminology.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
I'm not sure if disease is actually the proper term for it.
Okay. Again, none of us are doctors, and this proves it.
I think back to the point of like the stigma too is if you think about the age that most people are diagnosed like in young teens and like even younger than that, like they're under the care of their parents. And so I feel like oftentimes it's a lot of parents' worry projected onto children for good reason because of your friend that you saw like passed out foaming at the mouth. And I think I think that's where some of it comes from. It comes from like parents' worry of, I don't want my kid to go like exercise for, 6 hours because, I'm worried about them passing out. But yeah, I personally, I think that's where some of it comes from.
Well, no, I mean, which highlights the importance of having examples of people and why, again, I'm a dummy, but I know it's important to you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know you well enough to know that it's, and I followed you and stuff. So I know it's important. I know it impacts your life. I talked to Eric, who's a type 1 diabetic, and I mean, there's a whole team around. So I'm aware enough that
I know that
I know it's important. I know people are really, this podcast I hope can be, a resource for people. Yeah. And if you want to go bike packing, if you want to go tour across America on your bike, I want to unlock that for people. And if people have diabetes and they're feeling like, oh, I can't do it or I'm struggling, then examples are great.
I think it's just like constant experimentation. Like, for anyone who wants to do something is like just constantly go out there and just see what happens. Like to Ezra's point, test. Don't just go out there and see what happens and be like, oh, I survived it. Like figure out like, did that work? I took that amount of insulin before, this race. Like, did I hold steady? Did I fall off? Like what happened?
Is there a safety net there? Like, so when you're talking about testing it, obviously you don't want to go in and, have a bad experience. So how, I guess everybody's body is different too. So that makes it complicated. So essentially just, I don't know, start somewhere.
Usually people like consider like under 60 low blood sugar. And I guess this advice, like the one caveat is if you are not on a CGM and you also do not sense your low blood sugars, that would be like the one person I might be concerned about. But I mean, pretty much anyone else, like you would know like when your blood sugar is low because you feel like absolute shit and stop, and eat something.
Okay.
But yeah, I feel like you just
that would suck if you can't feel it.
I mean, you just gotta do it. Like there's no other way. It's just you gotta figure out like what works for you.
It's like anything else in life, I guess.
Like,
I mean, you can read a book
probably
or whatever.
Really bad days for no reason. Like that's the other thing. You could do everything right that you did before, and for some reason you're stressed out, or for some reason insulin's a hormone. So say,
I'm gonna shove that up my ass. Not up my ass, in my ass.
I mean, like as like
it's all the same, isn't it?
Well,
it's the same thing.
I was gonna say as also like being female, like there's other impacts. So there's just so many things that impact it. So if you do everything you normally do and it doesn't go the way you thought it was gonna go, it's like not beating yourself up about it, which is very hard, especially if you are wanting to go out and race and be like really competitive. It's hard if you're a competitive person. It is really hard not to like beat yourself up, I would say.
Yeah, I relate to that through anxiety. I used to, whenever I was trying to race, I would get I've had anxiety like for a long time. It's under control now, but like it was so frustrating because I wanted to do all these things and I was having panic attacks left and right, and I couldn't do what I want to do. I'm like, I'm not tired, I'm not anything, but I can't do it, and it can be very frustrating to not be able to participate in the thing that you really want to do. It's and especially for something like that that's like out of your control. What you got, Ezra?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I think one of the coolest things, especially about like riding bikes and exercising and doing whatever you want, is how much it does help with your diabetes management. I think it's a super important point, which once again, that's one of the things that's kind of changed in the past 20, 30 years is managing your diabetes. One of the treatments is exercise, is being super active. And honestly, like if you have a doctor and you're a type 1 diabetic who's like, oh, you're a type 1 diabetic, you shouldn't exercise, go find another doctor, because there is still some like very old school mentality out there. And hopefully that will continue to change. But like I've heard stories of people being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and they're like, oh, my doctor says I can't do this. And I'm like, wait a second. Maybe you shouldn't jump right back into running an ultra marathon after being recently diagnosed with diabetes. But if you build up to it again and work with your doctor, you are very capable of doing, once again, almost everything. A few jobs that are excluded, but pretty much anything that you would want to do.
You can't be president of the United States and have diabetes.
No, I think you can.
No, I'm pretty sure you can. No, I'm kidding.
Like one other thing I was going to say is like, I mean, back to the point of like, I don't know any different type of thing. Like there are definitely really good takeaways I feel like I've had from being type 1 and like riding my bike a long distance. Like, I mean, bonking, like people feel like a lot of people don't know their body well enough until they're like in this like deep hole that they can't get out of. But I feel like if you're type 1 diabetic, I mean, low blood sugar, like you've probably been bonking like your whole for many, many years. Like you might know like a little bit better. So I mean,
this is edge, really. Like I know my body so well.
But yeah, I mean, just having that curiosity to those folks that are type 1 and like want to go out and race or ride their bikes, like you should have that curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely people doing it. Ride your damn bike, people. And message Ezra and Stephanie on Instagram for all your medical advice.
Non-medical advice.
Message Kayla.
I don't even know if she would endorse that. But
yeah. We won't put her on the.
We won't put her on that much of a spot, but yeah.
All right. What's next? So you're riding to College Station.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna ride out with them.
You're gonna ride, yeah.
We'll see how far.
So what's the plan for tomorrow? What are we doing?
Wake up, ride.
What time? I'm ready. Put me in.
Probably. I think we were talking about like a sunrise-ish start. 7:30. Yeah.
Great. I'll be sleeping. That'll be nice. That'll be nice for me.
Yeah, we'll see how long I go out with them and then turn around and come back.
So you're just gonna do an out and back.
Yeah. That's the plan.
Yeah. So you're hoping to do a century tomorrow?
At least, yeah.
Oh, at least.
I've been a little stir crazy because we've been stuck. So
And the weather Go ahead.
I'm so excited for Stephanie to pull those first 50 miles. I'm just sucking wheel tomorrow.
No shit,
It's going to be great. We're going to have a little train. Stephanie breaking the wind.
She's not going to have any shit on her bike, so.
Navigating us out of Austin, and then me, and then Ben. Hey, I might let Ben take second wheel. This is going to be a dream. We're flying tomorrow. We're going to be in College Station real quick.
You're like, I'm leading us into Florida. You can at least get into the College Station. Yeah, Stephanie's gonna be on a non-loaded. She'll be on her gravel machine, I assume. That specialized carbon, fast-looking bike over there. Yeah, she ain't gonna be fucking around. Y'all be having a hard time keeping up with her. Actually, it'll be interesting to see. We'll see how.
We're sprinting to stoplights. It's gonna be great. We got Ben to film. Oh.
Wait, Ben's carrying the beer cooler. So, and then you're going to stay at my house tomorrow?
I mean, someone needs to feed your cats.
I know. Yeah. What do you think? Should I trust them, Stephanie?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. They haven't messed up anything in your house yet?
Been here 3 days.
And you've been here to supervise them, but me, I'm just like, here's the key. You know, I'll see what kind of condition it's in when I get home. Sweet. And then to Florida. It's easy. When are y'all scheduled to be done?
Oh, I don't know the exact date, but today is day 17th or 18th. Today is day 18 of the trip. And so we'll be there in 12 days. We're still on track to do it in 30.
So this episode will come out on the 16th. So I was thinking people could like even that. I guess they could follow along on Instagram, maybe a little bit. And then also you can listen to it while you're riding. You can be like,
nice.
Like as you're riding, if you need something to listen to, you can listen to yourself talk about.
I'm a few episodes behind on Bikes or Death, so I got to catch up on that first. I'm like 5 episodes behind. I'm not keeping up.
Only 5?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I'm a fan, Patrick. I'm a fan.
Well, I appreciate it. I don't know why anybody listens, but they do. No, man, I appreciate yeah, this has been fun. What else? Anybody else want to chime in? Anything? I'm good. I talked about everything I wanted to talk about. Okay.
I got nothing else.
I'm good.
All right.
I think I'm good.
All right. Well, let's just drink some beers and get fucked up then. Get y'all a nice hangover for tomorrow. That'll be my goal. I'm not riding tomorrow, so my goal is to get y'all shit-faced. So
That's why we went with beer and not whiskey.
Yeah.
Like
I want tomorrow, whenever you're riding and remembering today, for it to linger. I want you to feel the effects of this day. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
I wish you luck on your bike tour. It was great to meet you. Thank you for meeting up with me, man. It's always every time I see anyone riding the Southern Tier or anywhere kind of close, I'm like, if I can snag an interview, it's just always cool to just catch up with folks. I was talking to my editor of actually I have 2 editors. One of my editors yesterday, and he was asking me about like, I don't know, do I ever interview people and they're kind of boring, or, you know, does it not go too well or whatever? And I'm like, nobody does this kind of stuff. Nobody lives this lifestyle and also boring. You don't live in a van and, you know, ride your bike across country and you're also boring. So, you know, I feel like I could walk into any conversation with somebody doing this kind of stuff and they're going to be interesting, you know, and y'all didn't disappoint. Y'all made the cut. We're still there. All right. Thanks, everybody. Wow. 2.5 hours. Wow. Bye, everybody.
Good stuff.
All right. That's it for today's episode, folks. Again, want to extend a shout out to my new friends, Ben and Ezra, as they come to a conclusion on a successful tour across America. Ben, don't beat yourself up too hard about that little segment. Man, it says a lot about you that you're able to pull through, you know, start out rough, obviously mentally, physically, emotionally, kind of, you know, having a little bit of a harder time, but being able to push through, make it all the way in. Super proud for you and excited for you. And Ezra, looking forward to seeing what you do out there on the Tour Divide. And let's not forget Stephanie for turning me on to him, hosting this little chat, and also sharing her experiences with type 1 diabetes. Excited to see her come to the East Texas Showdown and see what she can do. I know that she's trying to rally a little group to go hard with her. So we'll have to make sure they're not drafting. That's a joke. Just kidding. But don't draft. Next week's episode is going to be an Ask Me Anything with yours truly. And I'm going to be recording that one with, actually, Matt Mason has stepped up and offered to ask me the questions, which is great because I can't think of anything more miserable than just sitting in my house talking to a microphone by myself, much like I'm doing right now. But to do that for an hour, 2 hours, or 10 hours, however long this episode is going to take, it just sounds like torture. And so I'm stoked that Matt's going to come on and actually ask me the questions. And I think that'll make it nicer, at least a little bit more enjoyable for me. So, well, it's also worth mentioning, just a little FYI. You may have heard on today's episode, I mentioned that when we recorded that one, it was my birthday weekend and the weather was shit. So my plans got canceled. Well, tomorrow, Connor and I are headed to Big Bend to do my yearly, I call it the Big Bend Birthday Bash. And if you wanted to throw in another B, you could call it the Big Bend Birthday Bikepacking Bash. But that would just be excessive. So tomorrow we're heading out there to do that. I'm excited because the weather is looking excellent. And we're not only going to be bike packing, but we're going to be bike rafting. Connor and I both got our own pack rafts, and we have been kind of itching for an opportunity to go on a trip with them. But one thing about pack rafting is you have to have good water flow, and so you're kind of subject to when the water is good. And last year, what we did is we created a route called the Rio Grande Revival that hasn't been published yet, even though it should have been by now. Sorry about that. But part of that route, we incorporated a hike up to Mariscal Canyon, and it's basically about 1,800 feet down to the Rio Grande River. So this year, what we're going to do is actually ride a portion, it's on the river road. We're going to ride to like Tally. You either ride to Solus or Tally. I get those mixed up, but you ride to one of those, you put in at Big Bend, and then it's a 10-mile pack raft through Mariscal Canyon. So it's going to be really neat to, last year I've hiked up to the very top, and then this year get to be at the very bottom and float through it. And got to be honest, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. So should be a really good trip. I haven't even come close to started packing yet. I think that's what I'm going to do starting about now. So wish me luck. And one last thing for my patrons. I think a couple episodes ago, I mentioned that I was going to be uploading an interview where I was interviewed by a Master's of Journalism student. I believe he's at the University of Oregon. He's doing some kind of class project and asked if we could hop on and he could ask me a couple questions. And it turned out to be like an hour and a half long conversation. And I'm going to share some snippets here to just give you a taste of what that is, since it is, technically behind a paywall for many of you, give you a sample, a little taste of what that conversation is kind of like, to see if it's worth maybe $1 a month. So I really enjoyed the conversation. We kind of broke outside of Bikes or Death mode a little bit because, it was just a different forum kind of, and I found that I started going to different places, and I think it adds a little bit of context and color to me and my approach to a lot of things. I mean, we just go into a lot of different stuff. We touch on a lot of different things. And if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about me, that is probably a good resource. I think, it's kind of in line with the Ask Me Anything episode that we're about to do as well. I think some of those things will be crossover, but we'll see. I haven't recorded that one yet, so we don't know exactly what it's going to be. But if you would like to check that out, I'm going to be uploading that now and making that available to patrons. So if you're a patron, get on over there, check it out. And I would love to hear your feedback, specifically on, would you like to hear more content like that? And my idea would be that basically I could talk about anything, but that type of content I would only put out for patrons. It would be kind of, I don't know. I mean, if you do listen to this interview with him, one thing that I mentioned was how sometimes the format of Bikes or Death is limiting. And I don't mean that to diss Bikes or Death, but obviously there's a lot of topics in the world, and my curiosities and my interest, believe it or not, I have more than just bikes and the outdoors. That's number one. But man, there's just a lot of fascinating stuff. There's a lot of fascinating people. And, I think it would be fun maybe to throw in some of these conversations just from time to time. One idea I had is that I live in a university town, and I know quite a few professors. And I think it would be interesting to just, they're teaching the minds of tomorrow, so to speak. And I never went to college, so it would be really interesting to just sit down and pick their brains, kind of like from an explain it like I'm 5 perspective, where you just, because I'm a dummy, I'll just go and be like, wait, what? Like, oh my gosh. And I just imagine myself being blown away and interested, and or maybe I'll be bored. Maybe I'll just go back to only talking about bikes. So who knows? Anyway, listen to that episode and give me some feedback. Let me know if it sucks, if it's good, if you'd like to hear some more kind of stuff like that. And if you're not a patron, you want to check that out, it's at patreon.com/bikes or death. Thanks. And don't forget to go ride your damn bike. Gosh dang. Sitting around on Instagram all day.
It was the middle of the night. You grabbed your knife and you held it tight. The sounds of beasts kept you awake. The sounds they made kept you afraid. In the morning, you packed your bike. Memories forgotten from the previous night. You rode faster than ever before. Was it your imagination or merely folklore? Fear turned into strength as you pushed further. Every pedal stroke stronger and firmer. Your bike feels weightless, your legs aren't tired. You think to yourself, just a few more miles. Bikes or death. Bikes or death.